Melanie Morgan, you're recognized.
Thank you. Is this where we request addition of items in closed session as well?
Yes.
Okay, a situation with the associate judging program and the ID was brought to my attention a while ago. And I discussed it with Ann, but I don't see any mention of it in the report. So I'd like to add it to the judging program in closed session.
Okay.
Thank you.
Rachel, you okay with that?
I'm okay. I knew nothing about it, so I was not able to intercede and help. Had I been made aware of that, this may not have needed to be an additional item, but we'll go forward with that.
Okay, Melanie, is the reason why Rachel wasn't notified as chair of the program?
I spoke to Ann about notifying her. I thought she had been.
Okay. All right, well, it's always good to include the chair of the committee whenever you write to a subcommittee.
I didn't write to her. I spoke to her in person, but okay.
All right, okay. Always good for follow-up. Kathy?
I'm here.
Okay, thank you. Kenny Curley?
Mute. Kenny, you're muted.
I believe what Melanie is referring to is something having to do with the international division. And I'm not certain if it's listed as public information, given the ID other chair report, if it's in the open or closed session. I don't know if Rachel can tell me that. I wasn't able to find it. I did see one report, but it wasn't sure about the report from Mr. Zenda. And I believe that's what Melanie is referring to.
Apparently she's shaking her head no, Kenny. Rachel, you're recognized.
Thank you. There's just the one report. I'm also acknowledging that Pam Moser is on the call now for
Okay,
our roll call.
All right, thank
All
you,
right.
Rachel.
I am.
all right,
Thank
thank you. All right. Okay, so we had a couple additions there. So is there any objection to accepting the amended orders of business? Kenny, your hands up. Okay, without objection, the orders of the day are accepted. All right, let me get my glasses here. Okay, Rachel, you're up.
Thank you. There were no additions or corrections to the minutes. So we'll go to sub paragraph B, and I will make a motion to approve the January 4th, 2022 teleconference minutes as published.
Kenny seconds.
Thank you. Any objections? Okay, so moved by unanimous consent. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you. Subparagraph C is ratification of the online motions. We have several motions that require ratification. If Ellen can scroll down to make sure it ends at number 2. I don't have my reference document here. So I move that we ratify the 2 executive committee motions that you see there. They were unanimously carried by the executive committee.
Okay, need a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Rich, any comments? Okay, any objection? Motion is adopted by unanimous consent.
Thank you. So we can move on to the judging program report.
Correct?
The first report is the, I have an action item here that, and I apologize. I usually have my own separate document that has all my notes on it and a little script, and I'm not able to access that for some reason today. Thank you to the internet. In December, Melanie brought up a motion that was discussed, and we decided to table it until this board meeting. And you see the action item there that's stated, and I'll read it for the record, that leaves of absences, retirements, and resignations be reviewed and approved by the judging program chair. Once approved, the judging program chair will inform the board by including the approval in its next board report. That's my motion.
Need a second?
Carol,
Okay.
second.
Carol, was that you?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Melanie Morgan, you're recognized.
Yeah, I know we discussed this to some extent at our last meeting, and one of the concerns was that we wanted to be in compliance with our Constitution. In my opinion, delegating this responsibility to the judging program is not a violation of our Constitution based off of our existing activities. I may be wrong, but I don't believe that a reduction of a judge's status is the same as a leave of absence or retirement or resignation. And so again, that holds in with our constitutional requirements that the board must be in charge of any reduction in status. In addition, we have precedent set in a number of other areas where the board has delegated the authority to other parties such as committees or central office with things like show licensing, et cetera. Should this motion pass, the judging program would inform the board of any and all actions taken, but we're alleviating the need for rubber stamping that goes with approving a retirement or a resignation, which is, point in fact, something that we really, frankly, have not a lot of control over, as well as the awkwardness of asking for a leave of absence, which often is well after the effective date.
Thank you, Rich Maston.
Yeah, I'm in full support of this. I just want to Shelley, if you would comment on this. Are we, in your opinion, are we okay with it from our bylaw standpoint?
Okay, well, I'm not sure what the definition of it is. So can you give me the exact question that you want to know is okay with the bylaws?
Yeah, so can we, the action item that Rachel motioned and Carol second, can we go ahead and proceed and be in line with our current bylaws? So what it is doing is it's allowing the judging program chair will inform the board any leave of absence, retirements, and resignations of board of judges.
You need to give me a few minutes. I can look that up. I just want to verify in the bylaws and then I'll let you know.
Okay.
If you want to pass the motion, if allowed by the bylaws, then you can keep moving forward.
Okay, Rachel, you okay with that?
I'll agree to that amendment, sure.
Carol? You muted?
Yes, I agree. Yes.
Okay, all right, any further discussion? Is there any objection to the motion? Hearing no objection by unanimous consent, it is agreed to as amended.
Thank you, and we're happy to do that. The judging program is an arm of the board, so however we can best serve the board is great. If we can scroll down to the next item, which I believe is the Associate Judge Subcommittee, you see an action item there. I'd also like to take this opportunity to make a standing motion to approve all of the motions on the judging program report, both open and closed session. There is an action item here that will be dealt with in executive session to advance our ID Asia. Now we've advanced past it, I'm sorry, ITSE from Thailand. Here you see our training and advancing judge subcommittee report. There are no judges coming forward for advancement at this board meeting. So our next subcommittee is the approved judge report, I believe. If we can scroll down, thank you. Vicki Nye has provided us a list of the judges who are have a leave of absence. There are many, so this will be a great tool for us. We've had a couple of judges that we have lost in the judging that were former or current judges. You see Mrs. Yuko Nozuki has passed away. And then our next one that you will see is Carolyn Owen from Texas. And we had a third one recently, a day or two ago, Judge Bob Bryan from Region 6 has passed away. So we, all of us give our deepest sympathies to the families and those who cared about these judges. So thank you. If we can move on here, scroll down, please. And there's a list of our guest judge assignments that have been approved by Vicky. Scrolling down again is a note from Barbara Yeager about the breed awareness and orientation school that's coming up. We'll be having another one in the fall. If we can scroll down, please. That's the end of the report. Thank you very much. We'll take it up again in executive session tomorrow.
Okay, thank you, Rachel. Any comments or questions for Rachel on her report? Okay, our next order.
I would obviously like to thank all the members of the committee and the subcommittee chairs. They do a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes. So they're doing a great job. I appreciate them and hope you all do too.
Thank you very much, Rachel. All right, our next order of business is the central office report. Aline Tartaglia, you're recognized.
Okay. A couple of the first two items are really just for information only regarding just fraud protection on our checking account. And the other is we did a little bit of maintenance and tightening up of the File Vista online file management tool used by the board members. So if anybody has no questions, or do you have any questions, I can move on to the other items.
You don't see any hands up, Aline. Go ahead and proceed.
So we've talked at prior, it's about the election ballot tallying, the automated tallying of the ballots at the annual meeting. We've talked about this at prior meetings, and what I'm presenting here is an amendment to go to the delegation at this year's annual, sponsored by the board, which simply allows the option of the tallying electronically of the ballots that are cast online. So instead of printing them out, bringing them to the annual, hand counting them, if we do the electronic tallying, which is very accurate, we've actually done it for the past 2 years in addition to the hand count, we'll save quite a bit of time, and it's accurate. So that's what this is presenting to you. And I did run this amendment by the legal team, and they're all okay with it.
Thank you. Melanie, you're recognized.
Thank you. I think it makes sense in this instance. My understanding is this doesn't require that we do it this way, but it gives us the option. So I think it makes sense to think ahead and build that in. So I'm supportive.
Okay, Mark Hannon, you're recognized.
Does this account for people that prefer to send it by mail or fax or some other way? Does it have to be online?
No, they do not have to be online. Practicality is that all ballots except 1 or 2 are cast online, and we will, of course, bring those to the annual meeting, and those would be added into the count by the Credentials Committee. I think we had 1 last year that came in by fax. The rest were online. And I also wanted to point out that there would be no change to how the ballots were counted this year at the annual. They would be a hand count because currently the Constitution does not allow for electronic tallying. The past 2 years were just a special exception because of COVID.
Okay, Rich Maston, you're recognized.
Yeah, I don't believe we have a motion on this yet, so I'll go ahead and make the motion.
Okay. Thank you. I need a second.
George will second.
Thank you, George. Okay, Rich, comments?
Just that if this is not in our bylaws, it will have to be changed, and I like how it's being presented. for this upcoming in-person annual meeting. And then we can include it in future meetings, this option.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, any objection to presented motion? Hearing no objection by unanimous consent, it is agreed to. Go ahead, Ali.
Okay, thank you. Let me just make a note of that. The second item is also something that we have discussed in the past, and it's about the type of voting method we want to use for amendments and resolutions. The online voting proved to be quite popular at last year's virtual annual, and we were tasked with the researching the possibilities and what the costs are for the various.
Excuse me,
methods.
before we go to the next item, can we finish the last one? Who's going to write the rationale?
I could write the rationale and run it by you if you'd like, George.
Yeah. We just need somebody assigned to the task or it won't get done.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you, George.
let me just make a note. Okay. So there are three options for voting on amendments and resolutions. And one, of course, is the way we have traditionally done it with the hand count vote. But the other two options I've outlined. One is the online voting, which is what we used in 2021. There we go. And we've listed the pros and the cons and what everybody liked about it. The voting results were very accurate. Confirmation of the vote was sent to the club secretary, and there was a record of the club's vote. Although we didn't share that, it was available if we had any questions. The cons for an in-person meeting to vote in that method would be that each delegate would need a mobile device, whether they're a tablet, smartphone, or laptop. We would need to purchase reliable Wi-Fi for the meeting room. We have checked with a hotel, and that cost is in the area of $5,000 up to $10,000 by the time we have Wi-Fi access for everybody. That's a lot of bandwidth for that many people. And also there would probably need to be power stations. The last thing we want is a delegate losing power all of a sudden in the middle. And there would be some technical issues for some users. You know, we would be there in person to troubleshoot, but I think the main issues are requiring a mobile device and the reliable Wi-Fi. Does anybody have any questions on that particular option?
So Ellie, did you get any complaints from any delegates that they didn't have the availability of accessing the voting process?
No, not really.
Okay,
From during last year's virtual annual?
correct.
No, in fact, everybody was very positive about it.
Okay,
I'm aware.
Annette, you're recognized.
Thank you. A question I have on this, and if it's answered somewhere, I apologize, but is this going to require people actually be in the room, or is it going to allow for people to vote remotely, whether they be at home or by the pool, delegates? I mean,
I think we discussed previously that the voting would be done only by those delegates who have checked in and are present, actually attending the meeting. There would be no virtual online voting of delegates.
Thank you.
Pam Mosier.
Eileen, on that, what would prevent somebody that was sitting at the pool, as long as they have a Wi-Fi connection for voting?
Well, there is nothing that could prevent it if they had that Wi-Fi access and that availability. They probably wouldn't unless they use a personal hotspot or something.
Well, wouldn't that, are you saying that that would only be available in the room? I didn't know that you could do that. I would think that if you were outside the room, you might be able to still have that access. Just a question.
You may, it just depends on the hotel and the type of Wi-Fi access they provide.
Well, Pam, if they weren't in the room, they wouldn't hear me or whoever the president is call for the vote and say the voting is open. Unless somebody's texting them and telling them that they should vote. Melanie?
Thank you. Well, I like the ability to get real-time numbers for votes, and I thought that the procedures used in our virtual annual worked amazingly well. If we're having an in-person annual with all the related expenses, and they're significant, I don't see that adding an additional $5,000 to $10,000 to the expense column are truly necessary when we have a method in place for our in-person meetings. And as brought up by these other people, I think it opens us up for unintended consequences in terms of usage that may not fall within our guidelines for what counts as a seated delegate.
Kathy Dunham, you're recognized.
Just as a point of clarification, usually if an event conference wants a closed network for a specific purpose, that is something that can be requested from the hotel. So if we have a closed network that is contained within our delegates meeting room, then you would have to be close enough to that network and have the correct logon to be able to log on and then access our voting application. So we could limit the access to somebody being at the pool unless the pool is right next to the room. So it is a possibility and can certainly be researched for cost. Thank you,
Kathy, for your area of expertise there. Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
I am, of course, taking the notes to type up later, but I got a message in. Have we given further thought to having a hybrid annual, being on-site and remote?
Can I speak to that, Daryl?
Yeah, yes, you may go ahead,
I
Ali.
think the board has discussed that. The virtual annual committee discussed it. And it was determined that a hybrid annual would not be a good thing for a couple of reasons. One of the main concerns is that it would decrease attendance at the actual meeting. We would have issues picking up our room count, that we've already contracted for, basing it on a strictly in-person annual meeting. So there would be additional costs to do a hybrid meeting, but I think the main thing is that it would decrease attendance at the annual meeting, and that would come in a large cost to the association.
Thank you. I just needed that verified. I've already bought my plane ticket, so I'll be there.
Okay. Kathy Dunham, your hand's up.
Sorry, Daryl. I
Okay,
have
no
no other
problem.
comments.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Ali.
The only other, it was just another option, which is what they call, it's a automated response system. We call it clicker voting. It's what they use in the U.S. House of Representatives, and it's used very extensively. Unfortunately, that comes at a large cost too, because we have to buy the system, we buy the clickers, administration of the system, and keeping track of those distributed clickers could become, a challenge, I guess you could say. But of course, there's the cost. So in lieu of either of those, I had a couple of motions here. Motion number 3 is really out of order because it's what we already do and it's what our default is. So I just presented these motions in case you want to consider them, or, we don't have to. It's up to you.
Okay, anybody want to make a motion for number 1? Okay, motion number 2. Okay, it looks like we'll conduct the meeting as usual.
Thank you. I didn't have anything else.
Okay, thank you, Ellie. Let's see here. Marketing is next. Desiree, you're recognized.
Hey, everybody. I think everything is pretty self-explanatory on the report, but if you have any questions about any of these topics, I'll be happy to discuss them. Or did you want me to go through every item?
No, just where everybody can read. So,
Yeah. Okay.
Anybody have any questions for Desiree on her report? She has no action items. Okay, thank you, Desiree. Looks like no one's got their hands up.
Okay, thank you.
All right. So let's go to the IT report. That's the next order of business. And James Sembro, you're recognized.
Thanks, Errol. Not much to report there. Expand on their report. The first couple of items, genetics, we're trying to get that moving along on the ECAT side. We have completed 2 projects with the PDFs, printing availability for the grands and pedigrees. Those are turned out very nice. Other item there, we did receive a preliminary quote for the system revision, if you want to call it that. That is to be considered for the budget for next, for the next budget. It quite frankly, it came in quite a bit less than I was expecting, so that was a nice surprise. This will mainly, I know there was some concern last time when this was brought up about, the language it was written in is really not, it's not antiquated, but it's also a language that's not used anymore. If it's anything like this is developed new, nobody uses the Visual Basic anymore. It will also, but the primary reason for doing this is to kind of give it a refreshed look. It is a website. I mean, our system is really not much different than an actual website. And websites, you have to revise every so many years just to keep them more user friendly and add features to them. That's where we get into cost. The feature, adding new features now has kind of gotten costly because our programmers that we're dealing with now are finding it very inefficient. They frequently are to the point where they look at fixing something or adding a feature, and it's to the point where it would be quicker and easier to just rewrite it from the beginning. So we'd like to get a new foundation to work with so that we reduce our overall maintenance costs in the future. So that's something, just a kind of a heads up number for budgeting reasons. Now, I do have an action item there if we want to move to.
Darrell?
Oh,
yeah, go on.
Can I ask questions regarding the system revision before we go on to the action item?
Sure.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, I've got a couple of questions. James, thanks for obtaining a more accurate quote on this. Are there any other estimated costs, whether it be third party or hardware, for the system revision?
No, it currently resides on Microsoft's Azure hosting, which we found to be much better than what we had with our prior company, much more stable, and the performance is much more scalable. So it would stay on that.
Okay, so your budgeted number, your projected 155 to 200,000, that's all inclusive of all expenses?
Yes.
Okay, and then my second and last question is, if the board approves this investment for next year's budget, what's the estimated start date and what's the estimated completion date?
Once approved, they could probably get started on it within a couple of weeks. They're kind of itching to do that. As far as time frame, this is a fairly large project, because we're planning on adding features. It's not just a revision. This is going to allow us to revamp ECAT, add a lot of features to ECAT that we've been getting requests for many years now. So there's some growth there and some new stuff. So that will add to the time. I am going to estimate 8 months to a year to complete.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy Calhoun, you're recognized.
Yeah, question for James regarding this computer system revision. So the detailed proposal will be sent to the budget committee shortly?
Yes.
Okay, because that's going to take some time to digest, and I think we may have to have a separate Zoom call on that because it may be, you know, the technical nature, computer lingo that we probably need to dig deep.
Sure.
155 to 200 is still a pretty big gap.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. So
Yeah.
you're not asking the board to do anything today because
No.
and so your comment that they're itching to get started, that wouldn't happen until May.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. And we could, I would be happy to, Jeremy, who is our main contact with the programming, he is really good at explaining, why he feels this is a good direction to move. He's not trying to sell us on anything. He's, really looking out for our best interest in that. He sees how inefficient this was originally written. He likened it to, it was designed by somebody who designs, a database designer rather than a process designer. So he sees a lot of inefficiencies in there as far as the interface and the way things were done that could be much faster and simpler.
Okay. So, James, before we move on to your action item here, is it WhatsApp or is it Wechat?
WhatsApp. Oh, that's it. But it's the Wechat. I'm sorry. I get the two confused myself.
Okay. All right. So
the Wechat program that Gavin's been working on.
Yeah, Gavin told me he sent you all the updates when he told me he couldn't come to the meeting. So
right, yeah.
Okay, so that needs to be changed to Wechat entry clerk.
Yes.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Thanks for catching that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Wechat app, the original request that Gavin made was for programming that would allow it to speak to our registration system for verifying information back and forth. That had been completed quite a while ago, and they had developed to that point, but he realized that they needed a way of being notified if the entry itself in the entry clerk program, if an entry had been changed, and that would alert the person using the Wechat app that some type of information has been changed, the cat's registration number or some key piece of information for the entry. And that's what this additional money is being requested for the interface to talk to the entry clerk program, which is separate from our registration system.
Okay, so I need somebody to make that motion.
So move, Kenny.
And I need a second. Pam Delavar. Okay. All right, Kathy Calhoun.
So I have two questions, and one goes back to that computer system revision.
Sorry.
So
Oops.
James, we would need to get something set up in the way of a call with the programming with your contact before February 11th, because the budget discussion is going to start on the 14th.
Okay, I can see what we can do.
Okay, and then what is the spend to date on the Wechat?
What did we originally budget? The chart that's next. Oh, actually,
Is it on there? I
no.
didn't see it. No.
I think it's about 9,500.
That's the spend to date?
Yes.
Yes.
Anything else, Kathy?
And you're asking to spend this in this fiscal year? The additional 5,000?
Well, that's up to, I'm not sure how fast Gavin wants to move on this. If he could delay it till the next budget cycle.
I can't answer that. I don't know. I just need to know.
I would say yes in this current budget cycle then, unless he agrees to move it to next year.
Okay,
Okay, last question, Daryl, I apologize. So if
No problem.
if it's delayed until next year, what's the downfall of that? What's the,
Just delays Gavin getting that
In-
app going.
okay.
Melanie, you recognize?
Thank you. I think Kathy, you kind of asked a couple of the questions I was looking at, because I'm a little bit confused by this project. I looked back at the minutes for the initial proposal, trying to get some clarification for it. I found it in November 2020, so a year and a half ago, with an approved expenditure of approximately $12,000 and a projected completion date of 4 to 6 weeks after the work was authorized. So according to those minutes, that work was approved right after the meeting. So clearly the scope of the work seems to be larger than what we originally anticipated, which I guess is one of my questions. But given the amount of time that's elapsed since November 2020 and now, I'm kind of in need of a refresher as to what exactly we're trying to accomplish here. And whether this additional expenditure is completely within the scope of the project. For example, we're asking for $5,000. If we've only spent $9,500 out of the projected $12,000, then it's really not a true addition of $5,000 if that's still falling within the 12. So I spoke to Gavin about it briefly, and he's explained that they need this web interface, which, James, thank you for that additional explanation. So I just want to clarify the additional expenditures outside the 12,000, how much of it's outside, and if it really is necessary to add additional functionality, and actually just get a quick refresher on what exactly this program is that's been ongoing for since November 2020.
Abdelbar, you recognized?
James, do we have this type of ability with our current entry clerk programs? I'm not an entry clerk now, and I'm really not familiar with the intricacies of the working. And though I am familiar with what Gavin is trying to do with the Wechat entry clerk program, do we have the ability to get this feedback with what we're doing for the rest of CFA?
I'm not sure I follow along there. The entry clerk program doesn't, currently doesn't talk to anything else other than it, itself. It is really just a record keeping of the entries for a show. It used to produce all of the show materials, the judges' books, the show catalog, and all that. So there's been no interface. Now we are, one of the things that we're planning on budgeting for next year is getting ECAT to talk to, ECAT and our registration system to talk to the entry clerk system, which is, we're going to, basically repurpose money we've already spent to do for what we're doing for Gavin already. We're looking to repurpose some of that to get the registration system to talk to the entry clerk system, so that the entry clerk system's always picking up the most current information. So what Gavin's with this additional stuff, it would only come into play if we decide to do our own app, that we would want it to talk to the entry clerk system for entries.
Okay, thanks for you said what I thought I was thinking. I just needed it verified. Thanks.
Sure.
Rich Maston, you're recognized. You're muted, Rich.
Thank you. I have a number of questions for you, James. Getting back to what Melanie was referring to. I'm sorry. Is this work in addition to the original $12,000 project back in November of 2020?
This, I am not aware. I maybe I made the assumption that we had spent the amount of money that was budgeted for what Gavin had originally requested. I know that we didn't go over it. So I would say, if we did, Melanie, you said it was 12,000 that we had done, had approved.
Yes.
I would have to get with Aline to look at the numbers to see really, really if we've spent $9,500 on it.
James, my point is just trying to determine if this is additional work from what was originally projected back in November. Is this some extra work?
The work is, yes, the work is definitely extra.
Okay, so it's not something that was originally planned back in November 2020.
Correct.
Okay, so assuming you did spend 9,500 and you projected 12,000, you didn't spend the full 12, there's a $2,500 savings. If the board approves this request and you want it in for this year, same questions as before, when is the start date? When is the completion date?
This is a different company, Dynamic Edge, that handles the entry clerk program. They indicated they could get this, they could start on this within 2 weeks of approval.
Okay, and a completion date?
I think they said 2 to 4 weeks on that.
And last question, is Gavin in agreement with everything that you are proposing here?
Yeah. When he sent me the additional requirements they were asking for, I passed those on to Dynamic Edge. They came back with a number, and I passed that on to him, and he was, he didn't seem to think that was out of ordinary or anything. I then asked him if he wanted me to present it or if he wanted to present it, and he asked me to present it.
Okay, thank you.
Kathy Calhoun.
So James, can you add this with all the detail to the project list?
Yep.
So that we will have that. And are you fairly confident that this incremental request will be all that will be requested to spend on this project?
I would hope so, since we're not involved with the program, the project directly, with the design and all that it does. I would have, hopefully Gavin has identified this is the last of what they need.
So would it be possible for you to get the answers to all these questions and bring it back in April?
Yeah. Yeah, we can get, well.
So James, if we don't approve this, then the project stops, is that correct?
Yes, yeah, which Gavin has not, they really haven't done much on it for a while now. So it was kind of on hold for other reasons. Gavin didn't get into specifics, but maybe just because of COVID and everything, he was kind of holding off on moving forward with some of the work, but it's essentially on hold right now.
Okay. Kathy, any more questions?
Well, just my concern is that I don't want it to be a continual, just to be delayed further and a continual request for additional funds to get this up and going.
Agreed.
And I'm not sure that maybe Gavin needs to come and give us an update with all the details on this. That's all. I'm just, it seems a little gray.
Okay. Kathy Dunham.
I just had a couple points of clarification from Pam Deloire's question. James is correct. The entry clerking program right now is a standalone system, and I am an entry clerk. So entering information into the database, we either enter a new CAT that is being shown into the system, or we change data on an existing CAT that is in the database. If we change existing data currently, the system sends out an email to the person that originally put the data in, which is another entry clerk, and it sends an email to the owner of the CAT saying that data has been changed. So Gavin, my assumption is, without Gavin being here, is that he's looking for the same kind of confirmation through the WeChat app that he is working on, so that the owner of the cat would get that same kind of information currently. And James is also correct. The Entry Clerking Program Enhancement Committee is working with him to, hopefully through the redesign of the system and the budget gets approved, that eventually the clerking program would talk to ECATS and the registration system to verify the data even more, so that less errors occur, because we are all human and we do make mistakes when we're keying data. Thanks.
Thank you, Kathy. Rich, you're recognized.
Yeah, thanks for recognizing me again, Daryl. This question goes out to James, Kathy, Dunham, and Kenny. Do we know for sure that once the system is built out, Gavin is intended in putting it into use immediately and not let it set for X period of time? And then I do have one last question for James, and I'll get that out right now. James, is the $5,000 you are requesting confirmed? Is there a chance we could expect this to be 10,000 or it's 4,000? Did you get a quote on this?
I got an exact quote, and that's the dollar amount we were.
Okay, thank you. And then can Kenny, Kathy, and James comment on how soon this would be used?
Kenny, you're recognized.
I know that his intention is to get it up and running as soon as possible. Just like James had referred to, there are still problems with COVID in China, and their approach to COVID is much more strict than what we have here. But this isn't the intention of this attempt by Gavin is to simplify the entry process in China, where people can better understand and have these cats that are already in the database to be very simply to enter shows in consecutive fashion. So as far as I know, what his intention is to get this up and running as soon as he possibly can.
Okay. I know that Gavin told me he sent this information to Russell Webb too. And he's a sitting panelist. I don't know if we want to invite him in to get any comments from him.
That's okay with me, sure. If Russell's got some information.
Yeah, Aline, can you bring Russell in?
Yep. He just has to accept being promoted to panelist. And he's on his way.
Okay.
He's in. Should be in.
Okay, there he is. Hey, Russell.
You're on mute, Russell.
Okay.
There you go. So you got some information you can help shed on the subject?
What I understand from Gavin is that as soon as this goes through, he will immediately start the process on this WeChat program. It's not something that's going to be delayed.
Okay, so if he gets a budget request, then he can start immediately.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Kathy Calhoun.
So do we have, maybe Russell has some input on this. Do we have any idea why it was put on hold? James mentioned that this project was on hold. Was it on hold because of COVID? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, actually, I think it was to try to hook up with the CFA program, right, Jim?
No, I mean that the initial request you made for us it's been done for quite some time, and that's the portion that allows it to talk to our registration system.
Okay, and I know he also had some personal things going on, so that could have held it up a little bit.
Okay, thank you, Russell. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Okay. So Aline, you can send Russell back to the attendees thing.
Okay.
All right, Annette.
Thank you. I have a little bit different question on this. I did not go back and look at anything from 2020. So this is a little new to me. So I just want to make sure I know what we're talking about. Gavin is developing a Wechat application to use for entry clerking. And this is a request to spend additional money to link that to our registration database. Well, can someone fill me in a little bit about what the security is within this application, or should I talk to Gavin directly? I mean, once we open up our registration database to an outside application, I'm assuming, James, you may have some idea of what's being built in there so that, this doesn't open up our registration database any more than it already is, or to users that aren't authorized to use this application, I guess.
James, go ahead.
Sure. Yeah, no, the application, it can only access our records based on a CATS registration number. So you have to use a valid registration number. And it only passes back the bare minimum information, the same information you get in a show catalog. So there's nothing you can really glean from it that you couldn't find in a show catalog. The application itself has a security key, and it's an encrypted connection to communicate between the two. So there's nobody's going to use it for anything other than its intended use. We do need to get in place a data privacy, or I forget, I think it's got data privacy agreement with Gavin, before the launch of the system. So that is something that still needs to be done.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other comments? Okay, so I think, go ahead, Kathy.
I'm sorry. I know I've asked too many questions. I'm over my limit. But so are we going from $12,000 to $17,000? Is that the ask? A budget of 12 to 17? And does that include the security piece that you just mentioned?
It does include the security. The security is already done.
Okay.
Yeah, that's given.
I think Rich's numbers, Kathy, it was an additional $2,500.
Well, I didn't hear this from James. I heard it from Rich. Didn't hear. Is this what you're asking? Because we're kind of putting like the pyramid, this. I just want to make sure the board is crystal clear on what we're asking, or what you're asking.
We're asking for, what 5,000 on top of what has already been spent, which I apologize. I probably should have nailed down that number. I think I had talked to Aline, and I was under the assumption that you used the budget amount already for that. So we didn't look to see what the budget was and how much had actually been spent. So I was under the assumption this was in addition to what we'd already spent. So we could rephrase this as, $5,000 on top of what has already been spent.
How about this?
Not
Can
to
we
exceed.
say we are taking the budget from 12,000 to 14,500?
Yes. But it'll be only $4,500, wouldn't it? Sure.
You said you spent $9,500 and you want another 5. So it would be 14,500, right?
I see where you're getting at. Yeah.
Because at least we have a hard stop.
So you're changing the motion.
Yes. Don't make me restate it.
The motion is that we have on the floor, we're debating, is giving you an additional $5,000. If we do that, that will make the budget line item $14,500, as Kathy stated.
Okay.
So we can do the motion we got here with the resultant that the budget would be increased automatically to 14,500. Or we can decrease, or we can eliminate this motion and then make a new motion to make the budget line item 14,500. And so that would give you the additional $5,000 to spend. So it's one slice of bread on the other slice of bread. So it just depends on how you want to do it.
Let's do it. Let's just increase the total cost to the 14.5.
Okay, then who made the motion, and will you withdraw it?
I withdraw the motion and I move what James just stated.
Okay, so the motion is that the budget line item for this project will be increased to $14,500. That's what you want, Kathy?
Yeah, you could just eliminate, yeah, that's fine. There's really not a category line item for this. It's kind of all in one, but the maximum spend, the budget for this project is Wechat project will be $14,500 all in.
So that will give them the $5,000 they're requesting.
Correct.
All right, Kenny made the motion. Who's going to second it?
I'll
I'll second it.
Who was that?
Delabar.
Okay, all right. All right, so we beat this horse to death. Can we vote on it? Anybody have any additional comments before we call the question? Howard, your hands up? No. Okay.
I just did it too soon.
Okay, no problem. All right. All right. So the question is, shall we increase the budget for the Wechat entry clerk integration to $14,500? Everybody in favor, raise your hand. Okay, the yes votes are Mark Hannon, John Kalila, Pam Delabar, Kenny Curley, Kathy Calhoun, Sharon Roy, George Eigenhouser, Kathy Dunham, Carol Krasnowski, Rich Maston, Melanie Morgan, Ayat San, Annette Wilson, Howard Webster, Rachel Anger. And if you'll take your hands down, the no votes are Pam Mosier. You'll take your hand down. The abstentions. Okay, no abstentions. Rachel, you can announce the vote when you have it tabulated.
Thank you. That's 15 yes votes, 1 no vote, 0 abstentions.
Okay, the motion is agreed to. James, you have anything else?
No, that's it, Daryl. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You'll let Gavin know, or I can WeChat him. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. So our next order of business is 8, and that's the treasurer's report. Kathy Calhoun, you're recognized.
Thank you. All right, you have had visibility to the treasurer's report for the time period of May 1st, 2021 to December 31st, 2021. I'll just touch on a few highlights. Total registration is down almost $45,000, but that's against a budget of $705,000 where we should have been, where we budgeted to be. So we're ahead of budget by 2.8%. The key indicators are consistent with shows coming back on board. So we're seeing income and those key categories increase. There will be a separate discussion on publications. Just wanted to call out on the yearbook that the expense piece, the production cost of the book, the invoice has not arrived at this point. So that net income of $15,009 will not hold. Beyond that, dropping to the bottom line, we're showing a net income. If you kind of scroll to the end of that, that spreadsheet, we have a net income of $265,000. compared to last year, that would been, that's a $94,000 change, but compared to what we anticipated in the budget, it is actually 4 times as much as we anticipated in the budget, and actually 436.7%, because the budgeted number at this point in the year was $61,000. So we are ahead of budget, which is good news. Anybody have any questions on that portion of the treasurer's report? Okay.
Questions? Go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. So the next section here is about regional and international division funding. And when we met in December, the commitment was made, once we decided not to have the February board meeting in person and to be virtual, the commitment was to come back to the board and make some recommendations on allocating those funds to the regions and the ID division. Well, primary reason for that is that, you know, the regions and the international division have not gotten the surcharge funds or the rebates that they would have gotten in the past because of a reduction in shows, and yet they're expected to have a similar spend to a normal year in the way of awards and banquets and those sorts of things. So we wanted to give back that savings to the regions. The total donation would be $30,000, which is approximately what we spend for a in-person meeting. So the first motion, CFA will donate $2,000 to each region and $2,000 to the international division for the purpose of supporting regional and international divisions, awards, and banquets.
Rich will second.
Thank you, Rich. Rich, you're recognized.
No, I was just, my hand was up to second the motion. Thank you.
Okay. All right, any discussion on motion 1? Kenny?
Yeah, doing the math, that's $20,000, including the ID. Where's the other 10 going?
Next motion.
That's motion, Kenny.
So
Next
this is
motion.
so 1 and 2 are going to be together.
1 and 2 add up to 30,000.
Okay, so basically, well, I'd like to know why you separated them.
Because the first motion earmarks the purpose of the funds. The regional
Specifically for the awards banquets. Okay.
Right. The second motion gives the regional director or the international division the discretion to use that additional $1,000 where they see fit. If it be to promote shows, wherever they see fit. And it could be to the regional banquet and awards.
Okay.
But it gives them the flexibility, that's all.
Anything else, Kenny?
No, that will do it.
Okay, any further comments on motion number 1? Is there any objection to motion number 1? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of motion 1, raise your hand. The yes votes are George Eigenhouser, Annette Wilson, John Kalila, Rich Maston, Carol Krasnowski, Kenny Curley. Hayata-san, Pam Delabar, Melanie Morgan, Kathy Calhoun, Kathy Downham, Sharon Roy, Howard Webster, Rachel Anger. Mark, your hand was up. Is it not up anymore?
Correct, it's not up anymore.
Okay, thank you. Okay, if you'll take your hands down. And the no votes, please raise your hand. Mark Hannon. Okay, take your hand down. Abstentions. Pam Mosier. Rachel, you can announce the vote when you have it tabulated.
That's 14 yes votes, 1 no vote, 1 abstention.
Okay, the motion is agreed to. Okay, Kathy Calhoun, you can proceed with motion 2.
Just have one quick question.
Yep.
The timing of these donations, I just want to be sure everybody knows when to expect or not to expect it. So Kathy, is that something that you want done right away? Should we make this in May or?
In this fiscal year,
Okay,
because it is a savings from this fiscal year, not next fiscal year.
all right. Then I'll go ahead and do the paperwork and get this done in February.
Thank you, Ellie. Okay, Kathy, you can proceed with motion 2.
Motion 2, CFA will donate $1,000 to each region and $1,000 to the international division to be used at the regional directors and international division chairs' discretion to support shows and address hardships due to the COVID pandemic.
Rich will second.
Thank you, Rich. Okay, Kenny Curley.
Yeah, I'd like to propose an amendment.
Okay,
I'd like CFA will donate $2,000 to each region and $2,000 to the international division.
okay. I need a second. John Kalila.
I will second it.
Okay. Okay, we have an amendment to change the 1,000 to 2,000 in the motion. Okay, John, your hand's still up. Do you want to comment?
I'm sorry, I was drinking coffee. Okay, put my hand down.
Okay, that's
Trying to
allowed.
stay awake.
Yeah, Rachel Anger, you're recognized.
Thank you. The way I calculate it, that's an increase of $11,000. So
10,000.
10,000. Okay, thanks, Kathy. And I'm just wondering what generally with a $10,000 spend, there's some sort of documentation, accountability, something. I'm in favor of the motion, but to double it to me, I mean, that's making me a little nervous, and I just like some reassurance what all that is going to go for.
Well, the motion is it goes, it's their discretion, Rachel. The motion is to amend it to 2,000.
Certainly, I understand that, but
Okay.
Their discretion, can they, I just want some more accountability. Maybe I'm overstepping a little and coming off as not trusting the people who are in handling the money, but it's to me, $10,000 just out the door is makes me a little nervous.
Okay, Kathy Calhoun, you're recognized.
And to Rachel's point, I understand that. I think there is an element of trust in both. In both motions, that we trust that it go there. We are not asking for receipts and those sorts of things. And to the motion to increase it to $2,000 for each region and $2,000 for the international division. The predecessor to this motion was to give back $30,000 to the regions because we did not spend that for this board meeting. So in my mind, if we wanted to have a motion to have an incremental $10,000, that's a separate conversation in my mind.
Okay, Kenny, you're recognized.
Yes, thank you. I understand the premise and I appreciate the premise, but our clubs are hurting. And I know what I would do with the money, and I can certainly provide you with documentation that I do support, the clubs within the region. And I really do feel that you can't look at it as one board meeting. I think this is we've missed maybe 3 or 4 board meetings where we've had a substantial amount of savings. And this is just a reflection. This is a small gesture on behalf of the association to show appreciation to our respective regions and our international division. So I really don't think there's much harm in moving forward with an extra 1,000 in this regard.
Thank you, Kenny. Mark Hannon, you're recognized.
Yeah, we've seen a big increase at the corporate level over what was anticipated. And I don't think the regions can say the same thing. I think that it's only fair that if we're making more money than we expected to make this fiscal year, that we share some of that with the regions.
Thank you, Mark. Any other comments?
Kathy's hands up.
Okay, go ahead, Kathy.
Okay. I don't disagree with developing some sort of sponsorship or additional monies to the region. I don't to the regions in the ID. I don't disagree with your thought. But I'm going to go back to a comment that Kenny made that we've not had many board meetings. The difference here is that the other board meetings that we did not have, we did not budget for it. The February board meeting, we did budget for it, and the board approved those dollars. So since we didn't spend the money that we did budget for, that is the purpose of this allocation. Whether or not we support the regions beyond this, still in my mind is a separate conversation. This is just to designate how we spend the money budgeted for February that we did not spend.
Okay, Rich Maston, you're recognized.
Thank you, Darrell. For the board to be fiscally responsible for this request, and Kathy's report is only through 8 months of this year, there's still some uncertainty of what's going to happen in the near future and long future. What I'd like to see happen is the board approves Kathy's original motion. Kenny consider withdrawing his amendment and bring it back at the end of the year report, maybe in May, and we entertain it then. So at that point in time, we have the full financials, at least the unaudited financials, and then we can give those funds to the regions 4 months from now, rather than doing it today without knowing where the rest of the year is going to be.
Okay with that.
That's up to Kenny if he wants to pull the amendment.
In the interest of cooperation of the board, I certainly would consider that. I'd like to hear some more comments as far as doing it right now. I know that we won't shirk our responsibility to our clubs and our regions. I just feel it's high time that we show more appreciation towards them. And we are showing a profit. We showed a profit last year. We showed a profit this year. And COVID related, we haven't really had the expenses that we have been faced with in the past. And I do realize, hopefully coming out of this COVID pandemic and morphing into an endemic, we're still going to be have to be watching our funds. But I hear from my constituents, and even though I did support the masks, we spend $15,000 on masks and we can't help our clubs or help our regions. To me, it's a little bit one-sided. So this is why I was really proposing this, but I'll be more than happy if the board feels that I should pull this amendment.
Kenny, you're not obliged to pull your motion.
I'll keep my motion up then.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? George Eigenhouser?
Yeah, I agree with Rich on this. I think we should have a comprehensive program for helping the clubs, but just throwing little dribs and drabs randomly at them isn't really the way to go. This came up today because there was a specific fund available from a specific expense that we're not incurring, the February board meeting, and we're expending those specific funds. Are there other funds we can look to help the clubs? Sure, but it should be thought out, budgeted, comprehensive, and pre-noticed. So I'm going to oppose the amendment, but I support the underlying motion.
Okay, Melanie Morgan, you're recognized.
Thank you. I agree with George. I fully support the intent of this motion. We have to come up with a program to support our clubs who are struggling mightily, even more so in this current environment. That said, Kathy put together a proposal that is consistent with a specific situation. By changing the dollar amounts, we then go outside of the scope of that motion. So now you've put me in a position where there's a motion out there that I support in theory, but I will not support in practice. And that's frustrating to me because I'd like to get at least this portion of the dollars allocated and then move forward with an ongoing comprehensive plan once we have our figures together.
Okay,
So I won't
thank
be
you.
supporting the motion as submitted.
All right. You're not going to support the amendment.
Yes.
Okay. Mark Hannon, you're recognized.
I don't see why we can't do both. If we give them the additional $1,000, they get it now. If we talk about, let's look at a comprehensive look at this whole thing, that's putting it off. These clubs could use it now.
It's Mark, this is an amendment just to up it.
I know.
Okay. So let's vote on Kenny's amendment, and that's to increase it to 2,000. Okay, if you're in favor of Kenny's amendment to change the 1,000 in the motion to 2,000, please raise your hands. Okay, the yes votes are Mark Hannon, Kenny Curley, John Kalila, Hayata-san. Okay, if you'll take your hands down. The no votes, please raise your hand. Melanie Morgan, George Eigenhouser, Pam Delabar, Rich Maston, Howard Webster, Annette Wilson, Carol Krasnaski, Kathy Calhoun, Kathy Dunham. You'll take your hands down. Abstentions are Pam Mosier, Sharon Roy, Rachel Anker. Okay, Rachel, you can announce the vote once you have it tabulated.
Thank you. This will take me just a second. Sorry.
No problem. This only requires a majority vote since it's pre-noticed.
I have 4 yes votes, 9 no votes, 3 abstentions.
Okay, the motion is not agreed to. Sorry, Kenny. So we're back to the main motion now, which is motion number 2 is presented on the screen. Is there any further discussion? Is there any objection to motion 2? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of motion 2, raise your hands. That was Pam Mosier who objected. Rich Maston, Mark Hannon, George Eigenhouser, Melanie Morgan, Carol Krasnowski, Annette Wilson, Kenny Curley, John Kalila, Kathy Calhoun, Kathy Dunham, Sharon Roy, Rachel Langer, Hayata-san, Pam Delabar, Howard Webster. You'll take your hands down. Are there any no votes? Any abstentions? Pam Mosier abstains. Rachel, you can announce the vote once you have it tabulated.
That's 15 yes votes, 0 no votes, 1 abstention.
Thank you. The motion is agreed to. Okay, Kathy, go ahead.
Okay, so the next discussion is around publications, Cat Talk Magazine and ePoints, unbundling and going to a digital format. So currently, Cat Talk Magazine is bundled with eCats. You can get Cat Talk Magazine for $49, but the only way that you can get eCats is to subscribe to the bundle for $59. The prime, and if you notice the earlier in the financials, we show that Cat Talk Magazine and ePoints consistently lose money. The consideration is to move from the printed version to a digital version. And this will provide a number of benefits. It'll reduce the cost because primarily the cost is around printing and shipping of the printed version of Cat Talk Magazine. ePoints already being digital. So by moving to a digital platform and pricing it competitively at $20 for a yearly subscription, CFA can accomplish this given the reduction in cost, and still cover a portion of the cost to produce the digital version. The upsides of the digital version, aside from the fact that it would be available for $20 per yearly subscription, is that it's portable. People will be able to access it from their computers, their smartphones, their tablets. Then the ePoints would be a standalone subscription of $25 for the yearly subscription. This gives the subscriber the option of subscribing to Cat Talk magazine or to ePoints. And even if they decided to subscribe to both, the cost would be $45 as opposed to the $59 that spend today. So, they go directly to the motions.
Okay, I have a question here. There's
Yeah.
gonna be no printed copy going forward?
There'd be no printed copy going forward. The issue with that, Daryl, is if right now we have a very small subscriber base. If we print any of the magazines, the incremental cost per unit to produce a printed magazine at an even lower volume would be unacceptable.
Okay, I understand. I just want to make sure everybody understands, so there'd be no
Yeah.
printed copy going forward.
There would be no printed copy going forward.
Okay, all right. Mark Cannon, you're recognized.
Yeah, I'm the one who proposed bundling them together, and the purpose of that was because we had very few subscribers to the magazine. So my feeling was in bundling it forced people into getting the magazine. But by leaving it that way, we really have no idea how many people are interested in that magazine. A lot of people, I assume, are subscribing to ePoints, and the only way they can get it is to also get the magazine. And if we separate them out, we'll find out how many people really are interested in that magazine and how many really just wanted ePoints.
Okay, Pam Delbar, you're recognized.
Had we had the ability to go digital, we still would probably have the CFA Almanac. The production costs were just out of hand. Right now, you have a very low subscribership from Region 9. It costs too much money for a print edition, far too much. Going digital, you're going to see more interchange coming from Europe. You're going to see more information coming back to Europe with this digital subscription. Plus, the other thing is now, and I wrote Kathy, I said, I like this a lot because we get charged VAT, value added tax, on subscriptions. So if it's not built into the price and CFA is paying each EU country that little extra piece of money to get to allow that magazine to come into the EU, then we're paying it on the receiver side. I think that this is the way to go now to reach all of CFA. I hate to say this, Mark, you're talking US. We've got to talk world.
Melanie, you're recognized.
Thank you, Daryl. I would like to point out, first of all, that motion number 1 does not discuss taking Cat Talk digital, although subsequent motions do. This is basically talking simply about unbundling ePoints and Cat Talk, which, while it may not be popular, I fully support. Subscribers should be able to select the services that they want. And the unbundling, as Mark mentioned, will give us a far better perspective on the true level of interest in the Cat Talk publication.
Thank you. George Eigenhouser, you're recognized.
Fortunately, I think some of the people that are interested in Cat Talk are interested in it as a hard copy magazine. If we turn it to entirely digital, it's going to be like the online almanac. It's just going to disappear. I think that unbundling it is pretty much the end of Cat Talk. And I may be wrong. And one of the ways to mitigate against that is maybe we should ask our subscribers before we eliminate the hard copy version. Yes, there are advantages to having an online version. I agree with everything Pam Delabar says, but there are also people that get it specifically because they're looking for a hard copy publication. So maybe we should just poll the subscribers. How many of you would be willing to subscribe to a hard copy version for X dollars? How many of you would be willing to subscribe to an online version for Y dollars? And come up with a plan based on our subscribers' interests and needs, rather than just kind of pulling out of thin air here.
Okay, Mark Hannon, you're recognized.
When we unbundle this, there is absolutely no doubt we're going to lose subscribers to the magazine, because there are a lot of people who are currently subscribed that only want e-points. So we unbundle this, we're not going to have enough to make it cost effective to have a hard copy. Let's say now 500 people are getting it. What if only 200 want? You know, by the cost to print, only 200 is going to be much higher.
Okay, Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
If you're only going to survey those that are currently subscribing, you have absolutely no idea what your increase could be by allowing to go digitally.
Okay. So I'm not sure what John Smithson's Feline Historicus membership is, but that's he does a beautiful job producing that, and that's an online format. So, all right, any other comments? All right, let's start with motion number 1. All those in favor, raise your hand.
Hey, Daryl,
Yes.
we really don't even have a motion and nobody seconded it unless Kathy has standing motion. So I'll second Kathy's motion if she's got a standing motion.
I have a standing motion.
Okay, I'll second it.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, the yes votes are Melanie Morgan, Mark Hannon, Pam Mosier, Kathy where'd you go? Kathy Dunham, Pam Delabar, Carol Krasnowski, Hayata San, Annette Wilson, Sharon Roy, Rich Maston, George Eigenhouser, Kathy Calhoun, Howard Webster, John Kalila. If you'll take your hands down. The no votes, please. So I have Kenny Curley. Take your hand down, Kenny. Thank you. Abstentions? No abstentions. Okay, Rachel, you can announce the vote on motion 1.
Thank you. I was actually a yes, but I was taking the votes and didn't get my hand up.
Oh, okay, no problem.
So that was 15 yes votes, 1 no vote, 0 abstentions.
Okay, the motion is agreed to. Let's move on to motion number 2.
Do you want me to read it, Daryl?
Yes, please read it into the record.
Effective May 1st, 2022, establish a subscription price of $20 for a yearly subscription to Cat Talk magazine in a digital format. The digital version will commence with the June 2022 digital magazine.
Rich will second.
Thank you, Rich. Any discussion on motion 2? Okay, I'll call the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, the yes votes are Rich Maston, Pam Mosier, Mark Hannon, Kenny Curley, Melanie Morgan, Kathy Calhoun, Rachel Anger, Carol Krasnowski, Pam Delabar, Hayata San, Kathy Dunham, Sharon Roy, Annette Wilson, Howard Webster. You'll take your hands down. The no votes, please raise your hand. No votes are George Eigenhouser and John Kalila. You'll take your hands down. Abstentions? No abstentions. You can announce the vote, Rachel, when you have it tabulated.
Okay, that's 14 yes votes, 2 no votes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, Rachel. The motion is agreed to. Let's move on to motion number 3. Kathy, if you'll read that into the record.
Effective May 1st, 2022, establish a subscription price of $25 for a yearly subscription to ePoints.
Okay.
Rich will second.
Thank you, Rich. Any discussion? I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of motion 3? Okay, the yes votes are Rich Maston, Mark Hannon, Pam Mosier, Sharon Roy, Carol Krasnowski, Melanie Morgan, Kenny Curley, George Eigenhouser, Annette Wilson, Kathy Dunham, John Kalila, Rachel Anger, Hayata San, Kathy Calhoun, Pam Delabar, and Howard Webster. You'll take your hands down. Are there any no votes? I see no votes. Any abstentions? No abstentions. Rachel, you can announce the vote when you have it tabulated.
It's 16 yes votes, 0 no votes, 0 abstentions.
Okay, thank you very much. The motion is agreed to. Okay, Kathy, you have anything else?
I do not. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next order of business, which is the Budget Committee. Kathy, that's you.
Okay, so this report summarizes where we are from a budget perspective. Currently, I mentioned earlier that we would be putting together a tracker. What I'm going to do with the tracker is to post it in File Vista so that those that you can verify and check that your budget request has been received. I've been responding back to those that have submitted so far. In addition, if you have not submitted a budget request, you're beyond the deadline, and I will be sending an email to all of those who should be submitting budget requests. I will be sending a reminder email from the Budget Committee. We will need to get that information by February 11th, which is not pretty soon, but we are beyond our deadline that was published since October, so that we can prepare for our meetings the next week. I outlined the budget development meetings Wednesday, Monday, and Wednesday of the following week. I'm starting with the 16th. The preliminary budget would go to the board by March 2nd. We would have a meeting on March 15th. And Rachel, I need to work with you to figure out how we orchestrate that. So you and I can talk about that offline. Hopefully everyone can pencil that in their calendars. It's so that we can review the budget. If there are questions, we need to get those questions about budget line items or where we landed before March 11th, on or before, because we need to have time to prepare. So we'll have all the answers for the board on March 15th. Then a final document on March 31st to be included, and the final vote being on April 5th. I believe that would be the April telephonic board meeting.
Okay, any questions for Kathy on the budget report? Okay, I don't see anything. Thank you very much, Kathy. Rich, you're up next with the Finance Committee.
Great, thank you. On the first page of the report is the 2 questions to Scott Allen from Whitaker Myers. The first question came from a board meeting. It was either October or December. It was referencing judges going into the training program or individuals interested in going into the judging program and being able to handle the breeds at the show. And the question was posed to Scott. He responded. The second question came from a secretary from a region, and it was presented to Scott, and he responded. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the questions and responses? Okay. Current happenings. I do have a typo. It is the Wells Fargo bond amount. That was an incorrect amount. For the record, it should be $625,321.96. And the current combined all account balances, including long-term investments, as of yesterday is $3,304,570.87. And then there's a overview of the CFA show sponsorship programs. Let's see. And there is no action item below. It says under agility ring. We already addressed that at the last board meeting. Any questions or comments on the report?
Pam Delbar, your hands up. You're recognized. Pam?
I just lost Zoom there for a second. I apologize. Rich, you know, I'm going to be bringing up further questions on new show sponsorship tomorrow when we have our meeting. I think we need something more definite than what is listed under new show sponsorship, what's actually considered a new show, new area, even new clubs. So I'll bring that up tomorrow.
Okay, thanks, Pam.
Any other questions for Rich on his finance committee report? No, thank you very much, Rich. Okay, we'll move on to mentor and newbie. Aline, is Kathy in the attendees area?
I'm checking. She is not.
Okay, Kenny?
Yes, sir. Kathy is substitute judging at the show in Wichita, so she'll be unable to join us. She basically wanted everyone to take note that, well, this is not newbie. Newbie, I'm not in charge of. I'm in charge of CCW, and I think you skipped over that.
Yeah, you need to go back, Shelley.
No, not that far.
There we are.
There you go.
This basically is her report, and registrations have increased up to 65%. So this is becoming a more and more well-known project that she's headed, and she's done a fantastic job. Again, COVID related, soon we're going to be using this program, spearheading our registrations, hopefully very soon in India, as things do improve worldwide with this endemic. I don't have anything else to add unless there are any questions about the program, but it's been successful.
Okay. So she's asking for some feedback about options to advertise and grow CCW. Anyone have any comments on that?
If you don't want to comment verbally now, if you can send her suggestions, she'd certainly appreciate it. We'd like, we want this to be a global reach, and she's certainly worked hard towards that goal.
Okay. Thank you, Kenny. Anything else? Any other questions? Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
I would like to see it go more globally. We are needing something here to be a catch to get more household pets as part of our shows. It's additional entries for the clubs, and it provides us, especially in some needed areas where we're seeing increases in animal rights groups and breed restrictive legislation going on. It's hitting the dog fancy very hard, but we need something to come back and really bring up the visibility of cats, especially within Region 9.
Okay, Mark Hannon, you're recognized.
Yeah, I just think that this program has not been fully successful based on what we were told initially. And I think part of it is the marketing. And I'd love to see them do more marketing because I think there's some great potential from this program to bring in a lot of registrations for CFA.
Okay, Kathy Calhoun, you recognize?
I just wondered if Kathy has committee members that may have some diverse backgrounds that might be able to help brainstorm new ideas. I don't see any committee members listed, and maybe that might be a good step.
Okay. So Kenny, you can take that back to Kathy.
Yeah, I'll take all those suggestions, and they're all excellent suggestions. So thank you very much for your input.
Okay. Thank you, Kenny. Let's see. This is here. So a mentor newbie report, that's also Kathy. And Carol, you're the liaison since she's not here.
Yes, Kathy just wanted to mention that, and you see in her report, that the requests for mentors and also the interest in the newbie program have increased dramatically in recent months, and we're very encouraged by that. It shows a lot of new interest in CFA and cat shows and breeding in particular. The main takeaway from the report is that while the committee has been working with regional coordinators, they've determined that it's really too much work for one coordinator to handle both mentoring and newbie requests. So they're wanting to break that into two separate coordinators. Kathy is requesting that the regional directors please provide names for each of those positions to her if you've not already done so. But we feel that's the best way to continue to grow both programs and allow people to concentrate more on specific areas. If you have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
So Carol, you're saying she wants to keep it as one committee with two subsections.
Yes, the committee's still together, the mentor newbie committee, but up until now, we've been working with one coordinator for each region or division. And it's amounted, since the program is actually growing now, it's been determined that it's a lot of work for one person to coordinate everything. So they'd like to have an individual to handle mentor coordination and an individual to handle the newbie coordination for each region.
Okay, all right. Pam Delavar.
What this is worth, Carol, for Europe, because of the language variations throughout the region, I have asked Kathy to send everything through me, and then I farm it out to the appropriate people, depending upon, of course, their country and the languages they speak.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have full English language within the cat fancy here, so it's oftentimes, Italian has to go to Italy. Well, I can't even always depend upon a Spanish person to mentor somebody from Portugal, because Portuguese is not equivalent to Spanish. So that's why there's only one person for Region 9. Is it's easier to be a clearinghouse based upon culture and language.
Well, I'll be sure to pass that along to Kathy, and surely she will understand that situation.
Okay, anything else on the mentor newbie?
I don't have anything else unless someone has questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we have a scheduled break next. Do you want to take a break? And for how long? Break schedule for 10 minutes. You want to take 20? I see a lot of yeses and some smiles. Okay, so it is about 2:50 out on the East Coast, 2:49. So let's come back at 10 past. Okay, so we'll stand in recess on a break until 3:10. Business. Thank you, Eileen. Next order of business is item 13, George Eigenhouser Legislative Committee. And George is going to be right back. This would be a good time for Shelley to give us a ruling on what she was researching about the leaves of absence. So Shelley, why don't you go ahead and do that while we wait for
Okay.
George.
Okay, great. So the bylaws actually have a provision in it that says under Article 15, I think, that any action to drop, permanently suspend, or reduce in status an individual in the judging program requires a vote of 2/3 of the members of the executive board. The motion that you have wants to say that leaves of absences, retirements, and resignations can be reviewed and approved by the judging program chair. I'm agreeing that that can happen. As long as we're all in agreement, which in my reading of the bylaws, we should be, that a leave of absence, a retirement, or a resignation does not reduce the status of a judge inside the judging program. It just changes their ability to judge particular shows based on their own personal ability to judge. And so that's not what I would call a reduction in status. So I don't see any problem with the motion. And so that my recommendation is the motion is fine as it stands.
Thank you very much, Shelley. I appreciate that. Okay, George, you're up. Legislative Committee, item number 13.
Excuse me. Yeah, that's information only. There's no action items unless somebody has a question. I'm done.
Okay. And hang on a minute, let me look, see if anybody's got any questions here. No hands are up. Okay, we'll move on to the next, which is the Wechat Health Foundation. George, that's also you?
And that is also informational only. There are no action items.
Okay. Any question for George on that report? Oh, okay, so we'll move on to business order number 15, which is the International Division. Kenny Curley, you're recognized.
Yeah, the only report I think we have is for Russell. And I'm not sure if Russell is in the participants audience or not. We'd like to bring him in and
okay,
say something about his reports or any questions that somebody may have for his particular portion. And I'd like to offer the same to Bob Zenda, if he's also in the participants audience.
Okay, Russell's there. Aline, can you promote Russell, or Shelley, can you promote Russell?
I've got Bob and I'll do Russell right now.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, they've both been, and they're both should be here any second.
Okay.
You there, Russell?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, how about you start and then we'll go to Bob.
Okay. The report was just an update on what is happening in China. So unless there's any questions, you guys read everything.
Okay, I don't see any questions there. So Bob, is yours in a separate report?
Yeah, and thanks for the opportunity. Melanie had sent me a message saying that she had heard there were some changes to show scheduling in Asia and asked if I would, if I could explain it to the board what was going on. And so have you all had a chance to read the documents that Rachel put up that I was trying to provide the answer and all the information about what has been going on in ID Asia, particularly in Malaysia. If you have not, I'll go through it.
Melanie, you have your hand up.
I can wait until Bob goes through it, if that's whichever's the easiest.
Why don't we let Bob
Okay.
do what the plan is, and then there may be some questions as a result of that.
Well, you really have to get back to the background of it, and because some of the board may not be aware of exactly how this all happened and how the scheduling works in Asia. But several years ago, when Pam was president, Daryl was the ID chair and I was the ID liaison. Nadia Jafar in Singapore was appointed as the ID show scheduler, and she continues in that position today. The concept was that clubs desiring to license shows would contact her in advance and to reserve dates. And whenever a different club desired the same date within 600 miles of the license date, they were put on a waiting list. The system worked pretty well, and there were very few conflicts that could not be worked out through communication and compromise. Then came the pandemic, when everything came to a screeching halt. When COVID restrictions began to loosen a bit in Thailand and Hong Kong, they were the only two countries that had CFA judges, clubs again began requesting show dates. At that point, Vice President Maston, who was in charge of the show sponsorship program, wanted a procedure in place that would ensure that any show licensed by CFA would be in full compliance with all the government COVID rules and restrictions in any country where a show was proposed. Thus, Matthew and I were tasked to verify that this policy was being followed before any show in ID Asia, except China, was licensed. We did that by requiring clubs to provide detailed information on how their shows would be conducted to comply with local government requirements. And the CFA Central Office began referring all show license requests to Matthew and I for approval before issuing a show license. That process is still in place, and it happens in the background. After the CFA associate judges were approved in Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, and Singapore, activity really started to increase, particularly in Malaysia. And it seemed like a really, really good thing because, hey, we wanted to keep visibility and let our new associates get busy and keep the shows going and start the shows going again in all those areas. However, things got a bit out of hand when we realized that 3 clubs outside of Malaysia had booked all 13 dates that were available in February through June, which meant that no club in Malaysia could even license a show. So we had to put some kind of a process in place. And what I did is that I issued a scheduling message, which was copied, which is attached to what I sent to Rachel, that continued to allow clubs in the ID to request reservations for shows, but that anytime there was a conflict between an outside club and a club that existed in Malaysia, we would give priority to the club in Malaysia. And of course, what that did, it caused at least one conflict where we had to bump somebody who had a show date reserved for a club in Borneo, actually, and give it to the club in Malaysia. There have been a couple other conflicts, but we've resolved them since my message, because what it's done is it's caused them to start communicating, and we've been able to work out any other difficulties thus far in the rest of the season. I also got, it turned out that the 13 dates that were booked by the clubs in Hong Kong, Borneo, and China are actually being run by 2 different people, Benny and Eric. And and if we didn't do something about it, there's absolutely no incentive for them to do anything about forming a CFA club. And I told them that they wanted the privilege of hosting CFA shows, they should become a CFA club. So actually, that's where it's at. That's where it's at right now.
Okay, Melanie.
First, I really want to thank Bob and Matthew, I think, who's been working with Bob, for all the hard work they're doing. I know it's a complicated scenario out there. And I appreciate the update on the scheduling issues. I don't necessarily have any issue with these guidelines, and it's certainly not my intention to question their decisions. They're the ones who are down there in the trenches, for sure. My concern is that if these individuals in good faith were following the existing protocol that we had for show scheduling and requesting dates, and they were given the impression that they had approved slots, they may, and I emphasize may because it may not be the case, but I think we should look into it. They may have already committed resources in anticipation of their upcoming shows, given the fact they thought they had approval. So they could have show related expenses. They could have already secured sponsors, et cetera. So while I wouldn't presume to question the choice to implement this policy, and I think in fact it's a good policy, I worry that applying it with an effective immediately date may cause undue hardships on clubs if those outlays have already been made for shows that they thought that they had dates approved. I just wanted to make sure that this was not the case in this situation, and I appreciate the update to the board in terms of a policy change. And I thought you did a really fabulous job with that, Bob. Thank you very, very much. That's it.
Okay, Pam Delavar, you're recognized.
I have to agree with Mel on several of the points she made. Malaysia, I understand, did have approval from the show schedule. For the 13 shows. The Malaysia is still under COVID restrictions. So judges from Thailand cannot go to Malaysia, cannot go to Indonesia. And that is one of the reasons that they're using their associate judges so well, except for the fact, the one thing that I am hearing coming out of Malaysia is there is a great deal of dissatisfaction over the way that the shows are formatted. And that's 3 long hair rings, 2 short hair rings. And the short hair exhibitors are basically not getting their money's worth. They feel that things are stacked against them by, that one extra ring for long hairs being able to amass points for divisional wins when the short hairs cannot have that. I definitely know about scheduling process, but in agreement with Mel, I believe that we should have had a 1 May effective date on this rather than effective immediately. If clubs put out money for show halls, they put out money for rosettes, they contract with sponsors. I would recommend looking more at evening the show formats immediately.
Okay, if you're not speaking, would you please mute your mic? Somebody sounds like they're shucking corn, so.
I'm sorry, Daryl. I'm in the bedroom and there's a cat who's using the litter box. That was not shucking corn.
Oh, all right, sorry. Well, I'm a country boy, so I have to associate what I remember. All right, hang on, let me see who's next on the top list. John Kalila, you're recognized.
I know as a matter of fact that they already incur expenses for the shows in Malaysia, like chairs, tables, and they have sponsors already. So this is just information for you folks to decide what we're going to do with this. Thank you.
Okay, Kenny Curley, you're recognized.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Bob was faced with a situation that arose out of us allowing these associate judges in. And he tried to mitigate this and be as fair as possible, which I certainly appreciate, and I think we all do. So this was an unintended consequence, and he's handling this the best that he possibly can, and it needed to be mitigated with pretty much immediately. So we are faced with this situation. Perhaps the associate committee in the judging program could delve a little deeper into this problem, but there's always going to be problems when all you have is specialty judges over there at this particular point. We still become somewhat relevant. We'd like, in a perfect world, to be able to get back to where we were, but we're doing the best that we possibly can. And fairness is something that we have to agree upon. And I think in this case, Bob did the best that he possibly could. And I want to thank him publicly for doing just that.
Okay, Bob, you're recognized.
Yeah, let me address the couple of issues that Melanie and Pam talked about. There was only one conflict where someone had spent a lot of money, and that was for the 19th of March show. And we worked it out. The minute I sent my message out, Habdiz from the Malaysian Cat Club sent out an olive branch message to all of the folks and said that, hey, we understand that what you've done and we don't want to cause that much disruption. We'll be happy to work with you and even help you license your shows. Well, none of them bid on that. They wanted to stay with the Hong Kong license and the China license and the Borneo license. And so the one conflict we did have was on the 19th of March. And so I got together with Habdiz and he got together with them. And he said, since they had already invested the money, and this is the only club that had at this point in time, invested the money in that show and one on the 26th of March, they would graciously give up those dates and support the show any way they can. So we've eliminated, there are no other conflicts at this point through the end of this show season. So that thing was solved and we've started communications. The other issue happens to be with the 3 long hair associate judges and only 2 short hair judges, because one of the short hair nominees didn't complete the program. So I don't think, the issue is that the clubs are deciding what kind of a format they want to put on, and they're using all 5 of those judges, 3 long hairs and 2 short hairs, except for the Malaysian cat fanciers, which is going to have 2 and 2. So I don't think we could do a heck of a lot with that at this point. And until travel again is possible within those regions, we're kind of stuck with that. And I just don't see us dictating to a club, hey, you can only use 2 and 2 or whatever it is, but that would be something you may want to consider.
Okay. Let me see here. Mark Hannon, you're recognized.
As I understand the process, it's not new. They had to first get the show authorized by the show scheduler for the ID outside of China. The second step was to get Bob and Matthew to agree to it. And it sounds like Bob and Matthew had not agreed to all these 13 shows yet. And if that's the case, then these clubs that committed funds hadn't gotten the approval process yet. They jumped the gun if they paid for chairs, show halls, rosettes, whatever, if they didn't have Bob and Matthew's approval.
Well, Mark, I think that conflict has all been resolved. Is that correct, Bob?
Yes, we don't have at this point in time, we don't have another conflict through the end of the show season. They all understand, and we've worked out the 2 shows that are going to be held by those clubs outside of the region.
Okay. All right, Pam Delabar. You're muted, Pam.
I apologize for that. Excuse me. We have allowed in the international division for a long time to have the other country clubs sponsor shows within the international division, whether, like at Hong Kong sponsoring something in Malaysia. And Malaysia has always been sort of a touchy point because it has been the breeding ground of Southeast Asia for a certain organization that we do not bring up in open meetings. Because they have judges right in Malaysia who are doing everything that they can to subvert our activities in Malaysia. But we have had no problems with that previously. As I said, my problem is when you put in a new policy and make it effective immediately. I hope that you have all your ducks in line to make sure everybody's covered. I still am concerned. Nothing says that all associate judges have to be used at every show. I really encourage you to consider being very fair with your formats and evening up with your long hair and short hair formats. I'll bring in the other question up in executive session, but on the judges, but by all means, please consider that, because it's really getting negative connotation within Malaysia.
So Pam, how do you suggest they do that? They've got 3 long hair and 2 short hair.
They
Because
don't have to use all 3.
one of the short hair people didn't complete the course.
For reasons I will bring up in executive session, Daryl, and I'm not going to do it now, but you do not have to use all 3 long hair judges at every show.
Okay, well, that'll be, I don't think Bob is asking for the board to micromanage what they do in Malaysia.
I am bringing up what has been brought to me as a big concern within one of our ID countries. I'm bringing that forward so people know there is a problem. And if it should come back and bite us in the butt later, at least we've been informed.
Look forward to seeing what you present, Pam. Bob, you have anything else to add?
No, my only concern was, there is a real concern that, hey, the short hair people are getting shortchanged because there's 3 long hair and 2 short hair rings in every one of those, in those other shows that are being held in Malaysia. But I don't think we have the authority to dictate to the clubs that are sponsoring it and licensing the show on what kind of format they use. Unfortunately, that's what we're stuck with at this point in time, unless the board wants to, again, get in there and make some kind of a ruling. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions for Bob or Kenny or Russell? Okay, thank you guys. Continue the great work you do over there. So Bob, if you and Russell will go back to the attendee position.
I also have issue. I'm also involved in the club applications and the show and a show rule issue.
Oh, okay.
You're going to stay on, you're going to come in and out.
Yep, that's fine. Go, both of you guys stay on. I forgot that's next up on the agenda. Okay, anybody else for the ID committee report? I see no hands up. Okay, so let's move to club applications, and that's Carol Krasnowski.
Thank you, Daryl. Before we go on to the new club applications, there are 2 club resignations that we are aware of, and I have motions in there to accept them. It's strictly a formality, but I would like it to be on record. The first motion is to accept with regret the resignation of King Power Cat Club effective December 18th, 2021.
30 seconds.
Was that you, Kenny?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any debate? Any objections? Hearing no objection, by unanimous consent with regret, we accept the resignation of King Power Cat Lovers Club.
My second motion is to accept with regret the resignation of San Francisco Revelers effective January 6th, 2022.
Need a second?
Second. George will second.
Thank you, George.
With
Okay.
regrets.
Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's big news. That's a big club, so, or it has been in the past anyway. All right, any debate? Any objection to accepting with regret the resignation of San Francisco Revelers? Okay, seeing no objection, by unanimous consent, the resignation is accepted. Go ahead, Carol.
Okay, moving on to the new club applications. I will make a standing motion to accept the new club applicants, reserving the right to vote no.
Okay.
The first 3 club applicants are located in different districts of Hong Kong, which has a total population of 7.5 million. Currently, we have 11 existing clubs in Hong Kong, and 9 of them have produced shows within the past few seasons. While there is membership crossover between the Exotics Fans Club and the Hong Kong Cats, the 2 clubs have distinctly different philosophies, goals, and business models. The first application is Exotics Fans Club. This club is located in Ma On Shan in the Shantin district of the New Territories of Hong Kong. Ma On Shan is a new town on the east coast of Tolo Harbor. The Shantin district is situated generally in the central area of Hong Kong and has a population of 660,000. Several members are active CFA breeders and exhibitors, and some have show production and clerking experience. 2 members are CFA judges, 2 are retired CFA judges, and the remaining members exhibit pedigree cats or household pets. This club's main goal is to attract new breeders and promote responsible breeding of pedigree cats. This is an all-breed club, and if accepted, they plan to produce 4 shows a year in Hong Kong, as well as conduct clerking schools and breeding seminars. The International Division Chair, International Division Asia Subcommittee Chair, and the International Division Representative all support this club.
Okay. Annette Wilson.
Thank you. When these clubs were first announced in the CFA News, I wrote to Carol and asked her why there were 2 clubs with the same, with the same president and secretary, just reversed. So the president one is secretary the other, and vice versa. And so it was interesting to read the membership and the reasons why they want to do this, but I guess I don't quite really understand it. So Exotic Fans has 5 members listed that are in the US. And they have members that are in Kowloon, Hong Kong, New Territories, and Mongkok. And they give us one of the reasons that they want to spread out a little bit. Hong Kong's a big city. This allows more people to become members or whatever. And that they want to exist to do different things. And yet each of them is saying, and I realize I'm speaking to both the first 2 ones, that they each want to put on 4 shows a year, which is 8 shows. And that's wonderful. There's not a lot of judges in Hong Kong. Did we not get any feedback at all from any of the other clubs in Hong Kong? I guess I'm struggling with why you need 2 different clubs to put on 4 shows each when the membership is either half in the US or half or is already spread out all over Hong Kong. It's not like it's a new area of the entire Hong Kong metropolitan area. So I would just like some information on that.
Howard, will you let Carol address that, and then I'll call on you.
Okay, thank you, Daryl. I did not receive any input from the existing Hong Kong clubs. I did do a lot of follow-up with these club applicants. I requested on several occasions that they submit reasons why they felt they could contribute to CFA. And I was concerned about the cross membership. I also contacted Matthew and Bob Zenda to get their input about these clubs, and also Kenny Curley as the IG chair. They all support them. And, it's not unusual to have members from outside of a particular country or in the US, a particular state, as a member of a club. So, as far as that goes, that's not concerning to me at all. I think that the difference between these clubs is that one wants to promote more of the household pet, premiership type of thing. They're geared toward just kind of trying to bring in new people into the cat fancy on that level. The Exotics Fans Club, they are more interested in promoting responsible breeding of pedigreed cats. They have different business models. They have different sponsors lined up already. I don't know what else I can add about it. I did not receive any particular objections to any of these clubs. Perhaps Bob Zenda and Matthew can both add some thoughts about these particular applicants.
Okay, Howard.
It was by accident.
Oh, okay. All right. Kathy Calhoun.
Yeah, I just wonder if the goals of the 2 clubs, Exotic Fans Club and Hong Kong Cats, why can't those goals, why do those goals require separate clubs? They don't seem to be mutually exclusive. They don't seem to, you can't do both. So I'm just not clear on why their business models is driving their request for 2 clubs at the same time.
Okay, Melanie Morgan, you're recognized.
Thank you. I actually had almost exactly the same questions both Annette and Kathy had when I read these clubs' applications. And I spoke to a couple of the proposed members of these clubs to try to get some clarification. And while I understand exactly where you're coming from, Kathy, about why does this need to be 2 different clubs do this, you know, I think that we need to take into consideration the cultures that we're dealing with, and given different business models, as Carol mentioned, I actually think there may be a place for these clubs. I think it's unfortunate that all 3 of the applications that are coming through here, and certainly these first 2, came through at the same time. I think had they come through in subsequent meetings, we probably would have applauded the fact that we are adding, you know, assets to our CFA stable of positive clubs. But because they're coming up right in front of each other, it's kind of like really obvious that, wait a minute, some of these new people, same people are playing ball. I actually think in this instance, the fact that we're not getting any objections from the existing clubs, and that both Bob and Kenny are supporting these as well, garners my support for them, which, you know, I went into this not thinking I would give, but the research that I gave me a much better feel and understanding of where they're coming from. And although while I might not agree with that here in the US, we need to start thinking globally and recognizing different approaches. And I think that comes into play here. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Anybody else? Okay, so you have a standing motion for these clubs, Carol?
Sorry. Yes, I do have a standing motion, but I don't believe we've had a second.
Yeah, that's what I'm asking.
Can I make a standing second to all of them? Again, reserving the
Sure,
right to
that's
vote
fine,
no.
George. Thank you. So we have a motion maker and a second motion maker that are standing for all 4 of these clubs. So any further debate on club number 1, Exotic Span Club? Matthew?
Thanks, Daryl. So just a bit more background, because I did speak to Alex Look, who is founding this exotic cat club. His approach is 20-something years cat breeding in exotics. So it's very breed focused. And as we mentioned, he will be very focused on the exotic standard breeding. And I also know he lined up some sponsor, probably aiming at more high end and people who want to really go into breeding and showing cats. The second club, Hong Kong Cat Club, is by Gloria. She has been showing mainly Premier, and her personality is more towards friendlier. She participates in pretty much all the cats event in Hong Kong, from fun show to CFA shows, and she wants to bring in more of the casual household pet, premium non-breeding crowd. So while, you know, Hong Kong, I mean, the number of participants, we all know each other, but they do have very different philosophy. And I can imagine they will put on very different show in terms of style, standard, and sponsor. So after further digging, I mean, I did give this feedback to Bob, and I support that they should go separate way in terms of forming 2 different clubs.
Yep. Thank you, Matthew, for adding that input. So we appreciate it. All right. I'll go ahead and call for the vote on Exotic Fans Club. Raise your hand if you're a yes. So the yes votes are Mark Cannon, Kenny Curley, George Eigenhouser, John Kalila, Rich Maston, Pam Mosher, Pam Delabar, Carol Krasnowski, Melanie Morgan, Annette Wilson, Kathy Dunham, Kathy Calhoun, Sharon Roy, Ayata San, and Howard Webster. Okay, if you'll take your hands down. The no votes, please. All right, no votes. Rachel, abstentions? and no abstentions. So I didn't see your hand raised, Rachel, so.
No, I was waiting to speak.
Oh,
Can you
okay.
hear me?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, I was trying to vote yes, but taking the votes at the same time, it all happened very quickly.
No problem.
I have 16 yes votes, 0 no votes, 0 abstentions.
Thank you, Rachel. The motion is agreed to. Let's move on to number 2, Hong Kong cats. Carol?
Yes, the next application is Hong Kong Cats, which we've already discussed somewhat in conjunction with the first club application. This club is located in Mong Kok in the Kowloon section of Hong Kong. Mong Kok is a very densely populated area and is one of the major shopping areas of Hong Kong. Kowloon has a population of 2.1 million and is situated generally in the southern area of Hong Kong, north of the Hong Kong Island, across Victoria Harbor. Several members are active CFA breeders and exhibitors, and some have show production and clerking experience. 2 members are CFA judges, and the remaining members exhibit pedigreed cats or household pets. This club's main goal is to attract new fanciers and promote exhibiting in the premiership and household pet classes. This is an all-breed club, and if accepted, they plan to produce 4 shows a year in Hong Kong, as well as conduct clerking schools and educational seminars. The International Division Chair, International Division Asia Subcommittee Chair, and the International Division Representative all support this club.
Okay. Any comments on this one? No comments. Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, the yes votes are Mark Cannon, Kenny Curley, George Eigenhouser, John Kalila, Carol Krasnowski, Pam Mosier, Pam Delabar, Melanie Morgan, Rich Maston, Kathy Dunham, Ayata San, Kathy Calhoun, Sharon Roy, Howard Webster, Rachel Anger. Okay, if you'll take your hands down, and the no votes. Annette Wilson is a no vote. If you'll take your hands down, thank you, Annette. And any abstentions? No abstentions. Okay, Rachel, you can announce a vote when you have it tabulated.
15 yes votes, 1 no vote, 0 abstentions.
Okay, thank you very much. Let's move on to the next one, Carol.
Yes, the third application is from Hong Kong Devon Rec Society. This club is located in Tai Po, a district in the New Territories of Hong Kong. Tai Po district has a population of over 300,000 and is situated generally in the central area of Hong Kong, just to the north of the Sha Tin district. 3 members are active CFA breeders and exhibitors. 3 have show production experience. 1 is a licensed certified clerk and 1 is a licensed master clerk. The remaining members exhibit household pets. This club's main goal is to promote interest in the Devon Rex breed by conducting breed-specific activities and seminars. They also wish to participate in the ambassador program to help attract new fanciers and encourage interest in CFA. This is an all-breed club, and if accepted, they plan to produce 1 or 2 shows a year in Hong Kong. The International Division Chair, International Division Asia Subcommittee Chair, and the International Division Representative all support this club.
Okay, any debate on accepting this club? Okay, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, the yes votes are Mark Hannon, Howard Webster, Melanie Morgan, Pam Delabar, George Eigenhouser, Rachel Anger, Kathy Calhoun, John Kalila, Carol Krasnowski, Hayata San, Kenny Curley, Pam Mosier, Kathy Dunham, Annette Wilson, Sharon Roy, Rich Maston. Okay, if you can take your hands down. Anyone wanting to vote no? No votes, Rachel. Anyone abstaining? There are no abstentions. You can announce the vote, Rachel, when you have it tabulated.
That's 16 yes votes, 0 no votes, 0 abstentions.
Okay, the motion is agreed to. Welcome that club. Hong Kong Devon Rex. Carol?
Yes, the final application tonight is from Starboard Cat Club. This club is located in Nagoya, the capital of Aichi Prefecture in Japan. Nagoya is situated between Tokyo and Osaka, and with a population of 2.3 million, it is the third most populated city in Japan. We currently have 5 existing clubs in Nagoya, and 1 has produced a show within the past few seasons. 10 members are active CFA breeders and exhibitors, 5 have show production experience, and 1 is a licensed master clerk. The remaining members exhibit pedigreed cats. This club's main goal is to promote cat shows and CFA in Nagoya to attract new interest in CFA and the world of pedigreed cats and cat shows. This is an all-breed club, and if accepted, they plan to produce 1 show a year in Nagoya or Tokyo, as well as conduct grooming seminars. The Japan Regional Director supports this club.
Okay, Hayata-san, would you like to speak to this club?
Yes, I think, the president, Mrs. Kaji, I think secretary is the executive Persian cat breeder, and then she's exhibitor and also master clerk, and then she's showing many times in Tokyo, but she wants to have a cat show in Nagoya, I think. So I recommend very much, having a show, cat club there in Nagoya. I'm sorry, my English is so bad. You understand what I mean? She's yes, I hope you understand, because she wants to travel to Tokyo. Her club member also, I think her friends club members in Kyoto, Nagoya, it's closer, and then they're going to Tokyo very, hard, by Shinkansen. So that I think they want to have a show, show in Nagoya often, I think. Thank you very much.
Yeah, arigatou gozaimasu.
Sorry.
Annette, you're recognized.
Oh, thank you. Carol, in the actual application packet, the PDF file, the application is signed, but it's not completed. Am I not seeing something?
I'm not sure what you're saying.
I'm saying that, where you include the applications.
Yes.
Okay. It's blank, except that it's signed.
It's blank?
Yes.
Oh, I wish someone had.
Can anybody else see it? Maybe it's me, but no. I could read the others.
Yeah, Mosier.
No, I agree with Annette. I saw that too. It's all blank except for the signature.
Well, someone should have said something. I
just saw it now.
Oh, I'd seen it earlier. I didn't.
Oh, well.
Okay. It's okay. I just want to make
sure.
You,
I can read it to you.
No, I just want to make sure you actually got a completed one.
Oh, I do have it. Yes.
Okay. I'm good with that.
There are actually, let me just go through it really briefly. There are actually 18 members of the club.
You don't have to read them. Not for me.
No, I'm not going to read all of that, but I just wanted to say, all of their information was in order. And yeah, I don't know what might have happened with the file, but it's a shame no one brought it to my attention sooner. I could have sent it out to you. But there are a couple members that are involved in other clubs, but not that many of them.
Okay.
Otherwise, everything was in order.
Okay. Thank you, Carol.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Any more debate on the acceptance of Starboard Cat Club? Okay, if you're in favor of accepting this club, please raise your hand. So the yes votes are Kenny Curley, Mark Hannon, Melanie Morgan, Rich Maston, Carol Krasnowski, Hayata San, Pam Delabar, Annette Wilson, John Kalila, George Eigenhouser, Sharon Roy, Kathy Dunham, Howard Webster, Rachel Anger, Kathy Calhoun, and Pam Mosier. If you'll take your hands down, I think that's everybody, but I'll call for the no votes. And I'll call for the abstentions. Okay, no abstentions. You can announce a vote, Rachel.
That's 16 yes votes, 0 no votes, 0 abstentions.
Okay. That club's accepted. Motion is agreed to. Omedetou gozaimasu.
Thank you.
Okay. Next, the committee report is show rules. And Carol, that's you. And
Yes, I
can we-
think Monty is one of the attendees and perhaps
Yes.
Helen can promote him.
Yeah, that's what I was just getting ready to ask her to do.
Just promoting them right now.
Okay.
Excuse
In
me.
the meantime, I will make a standing motion to approve all the action items, reserving the right to vote no.
Okay. Anybody want to make a standing second so we don't have to call
Make a
for?
standing second.
Okay, Kenny, thank you. Okay, go ahead. Monty, you ready?
No.
Pam?
I am ready, so I guess. we
Hang
can
on,
start.
Monty, hang on a minute. Pam Delbar has a comment.
I was hoping that we would pull item 12, since that's one of the items I'm bringing up on Sunday as part of the Region 9 report.
Okay, can you scroll up?
I'll read it. That's show license late fee exceptions for regions 1 through 9 currently be in place, be suspended at the end of the current 2021-2022 show season. The exception that we will license shows up to 30 days without a penalty fee. I am asking for a reconsideration in my report. So I would like to have this pulled out until tomorrow.
Well, why don't we just table it and make it a special order in your report?
Okay. I request then, I move that we table this and I will make it a special item in my report.
Okay, Rich?
Are we voting on these all together? Or are we doing them one at a time?
No, we do them one at a
Let's
time.
do them one at a time.
Oh, okay, okay, great. Thank you.
Okay, so I need a second on Pam's motion to table. Is it 12?
Yes.
Rachel second.
Okay, thank you, Rich. Any objection to tabling number 12 until Sunday and Pam's closed session report?
It's not closed session.
Oh, it's not? Okay. Oh, that's all right. It's a new business item. Sorry, I forgot.
No.
Okay, you understand,
even
you understand any motion made will require 2/3. since it
Correct.
was- Okay, got it. Okay, just want to point it out.
No problem.
Okay, good deal. Let's vote
Well,
on.
except it is pre-noticed in my report, Region 9. It's not under new business.
Okay, we'll let Shelley look at that and make a ruling. All right, let's call the vote on the motion to table item 12. Okay, if you're in favor of the table, please raise your hand. The motion to table. Yes votes are Mark Hannon, Howard Webster, Carol Krasnowski, Rachel Anger, Rich Maston, George Eigenhouser, Pam Delabar, Sharon Roy, Hayata San, Kenny Curley, John Kalila, Kathy Dunham, Annette Wilson, Pam Mosier, Kathy Calhoun, Melanie Morgan. You'll take your hands down. Any no votes? Okay, any abstentions? Okay, the motion to table is agreed to. All right, Monty, you're on.
All righty. Let's start off with number one. This is the extension we have that's been in effect for the last 2 show seasons due to COVID-19 regarding judges being able to basically change assignments or not have assignments as a result of, or decline assignments as a result of COVID. There's another issue here that's come up that I hope it's going to address, and that's that a judge that used this exemption to actually go and enter at a show. That's a different issue. I hope that comes up. But anyway, this extension would extend it to the 22-23 show season. Because COVID's still around, it hasn't really changed things much. I know in this particular location, the Cook County, for example, you can't go to anything without showing your vaccination card and ID. You don't have one, you don't get in.
Okay, Melanie, you're recognized.
Thank you. I understand COVID is still around. I suspect it will be around for the foreseeable future. That said, we are moving forward with shows, thankfully, thanks to the hard work of our clubs out there and our exhibitors. And while I was a huge advocate of this particular exception initially, I don't see a reason to extend this exception at this time. If judges feel safe enough to go out and exhibit, then I think that they may or may not feel safe enough to go and judge. And if they don't, that they shouldn't be using that particular exception as an opportunity to circumvent the show rules. So I do not support this.
Okay, anybody else? All right, you ready for the vote? So we have a standing motion and a standing second, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right, so I'll call the vote on action item number 1. All those in favor of extending the exception of show rules 3.09, 3.10, and 3.11 due to COVID, raise your hand. Okay, so the yes votes are Kenny Curley, Hayata-san, Kathy Dunham. You'll take your hands down. The no votes, please raise your hand. The no votes are Mark Hannon, Rachel Anger, Melanie Morgan, Howard Webster, Sharon Roy, Pam Delabar, Pam Mosier, Annette Wilson, John Kalila, George Eigenhouser, Carol Krasnowski, Rich Maston, Kathy Calhoun. And if you'll take your hands down. Okay, abstentions. No abstentions. You can announce a vote, Rachel.
3 yes votes, 13 no votes, 0 abstentions.
Okay, the motion is not agreed to. And just as a housekeeping, I don't think Russell and Bob need to be in on the panelist list now. I think their business is conducted unless there's a show rule coming up that they need to address.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm addressing the one.
Okay. All right.
Number 8.
Not a problem. Okay. All right. Let's go on to number 2, Monty.
The next item has to do with show rule 3.13. What it does basically is allow the international division, regions 8 and 9, to use more than 50% guest judges.
No,
The
no.
exception is still
No.
in place for regions 1 through 7. And that would be just for the 22-23 season.
Pam, you're recognized.
Monty, it is not to have more than 50%. It is to have up to 50% guest judges.
That's what, sorry, that's what I meant to say.
Okay, Melanie.
Again, the pandemic is here to stay. However, the volatility of international travel at this point is still completely in flux. So I think it's totally reasonable to extend this through the next season, given the situation out there with international travel. I support this.
Okay, thank you, Melanie. Mark, you're recognized.
With all the judges, CFA judges that we have in Japan, I don't understand why we're making some exception for guest judges. Do they have many guest judges in Japan with all the CFA judges that live in that country?
Oyata-san, would you like to address that?
Yes, yeah, there's TICA judges here, but it is very difficult to, to invite, they agree, but we try to ask the CFA office, to accept, but the one live very closer to, to Tokyo, Osaka, so close, we have to have a guest judge like 200 miles or some, away, so it is very difficult to invite, but I love to, have them, as a guest judge, I will try, yeah.
Well, unfortunately, we dissolved that opportunity to involve the TICA judges.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pam Delabar, you're recognized.
Part of the problem with Japan is that they weren't able to get from one island to another island because of COVID restrictions. And that was one of the reasons they were put in to this exception, was to allow them to get, some extra judges. I don't know the availability of their guest judges, but I know that the restricted travel was one of the reasons that they were included.
I do believe
To answer Mark.
I do believe that there is a Japan cat fancy. I don't know if they would be able to tap those judges or not. So, Rich, you're recognized.
Yeah, Pam just did a nice job of leading into my question. Are there any current restrictions in Japan that where they need this? And in the past 6 months, have they used up to 50% guest judges in their last 6 months worth of shows?
So Hayata-san, have you used
Yeah.
it? Have you
Yeah,
used?
no, we applied, I think, one I applied, but, she live very closer to, Tokyo, also Kobe, I think, to her place very close, so that, we couldn't get up, permission from CFA, I guess. We want to use them, but, we couldn't.
Okay. Annette?
Thank you. My recollection is there's no standard guest judges in Japan. So if they were going to use guest judges, and it may have changed since I was involved, but if they're going to use guest judges, they would be from Russia or Europe. They wouldn't be, I don't believe there's any in Japan that they've used in the past.
Okay. All right. So does anyone want to make a motion to strike Region 8?
So moved.
I need that would be an amendment. Mark?
I will second.
Okay. So the motion now extend exception to show rule 3.13 to the International Division and Region 9. Is there any debate on that? Is there any objection to the amendment? Okay, I see no objection, so the amendment is agreed to. So now we have an amended main motion where Region 8 is stricken from the motion. Is there any further debate? See no debate. Is there any objection to the amended main motion? Okay, I see no objections. So by unanimous consent, the amended main motion is agreed to. All right, Monty, number 3.
Okay, number 3, we already voted on and passed back in December for the 22-23 show season. I just listed it here, so when I go to put the list together, I have it. So the next one we're actually going to talk about is number 4.
Okay,
Number 4, last show season, we lowered the grand requirements for everywhere outside of, or everywhere in the international division outside of China to require just 75 points for the grand champion title and 25 points for the grand premier title, no matter what. So you'll see the table has a whole lot of 75 25s. This extends it into the 2022-2023 season.
okay, thank you. John Kalila, you're recognized.
Yeah, I'd like to someone to explain to me how come China is not allowed to lower their points like the other international division.
They have a lot of
Go to
shows.
Raffle. They don't have a lot of shows.
Matter of fact, I think for last show season, they had about as many shows as the USA. All regions combined.
They sure seem to post a lot of shows on Facebook. Anybody else have? John, you have more comments?
No, I just curious, why we're not matching them with the other ID, that's all.
Okay, all right. Annette Wilson, you're recognized.
Thank you. I'm not so sure I'm reading this right. Is the 200 grand points grand champion, the 75 for where it says North America regions 1 to 9 except as noted, and then when you go down further where it says except Hong Kong, China, Malaysia, does that first line of 75 and 25 apply to Hong Kong, China, Malaysia, Thailand? I'm not reading. I'm not getting this.
I think I have one line.
You need to know where the break is.
Yeah, thank you. I knew there was a word for it.
Monty, where is the break? Where is it cut off?
You start with Hong Kong at 75-25. That first 75-25 is in the wrong place.
Well, that doesn't help me figure it out. Okay.
Yeah, it should have been formatted a little bit differently, so it would be a little easier to understand. Carol, you're recognized.
The exceptions are as noted. They're the things in parentheses. Hong Kong. I don't know why China's in there. Malaysia, Thailand. Yeah, this isn't written right. I don't know what's wrong. It should be Hong Kong, Thailand, Indonesia, Malaysia, Ukraine, Taiwan, and Vietnam that have, not Ukraine, Taiwan and Vietnam that have the lower points.
The problem is that first 75-25 doesn't belong in there.
China should be 275 and Ukraine should be 225. But other than that, they should all be 75-25. It is kind of confusing the way it appears here.
It may look confusing, but what now that I look at it, it actually is correct. That 75-25 starts off with the maritime provinces of Canada, United Kingdom, Ireland, Malta, Hawaii, Russia, east of the Ural Mountains.
Oh, okay, I got it.
Okay, that makes sense now.
Yeah, okay. All right. Everybody understand
Maybe
it
if I
now?
put spaces in between, that would have helped.
Yes, that would have been better. Okay, Melanie, you're recognized.
Okay, as long as it's, I think we all understand what it's saying at this point, and in terms of what it is saying, I have to support it because at this point, it's still difficult to bring in judges from outside areas. So extending the exception for any area that's isolated, such as these, makes total sense to me.
Okay, Rich Maston.
So Bonnie says it's correct. However, China in parentheses needs to be stricken.
China is 275, just like North American regions 1 through 9.
Okay, so it needs to be stricken from the in parentheses, because below that list each of them individually. Hong Kong is listed in parentheses, Thailand, Indonesia is listed in parentheses, Malaysia, Ukraine is listed with 275, and Taiwan and Vietnam. China needs to be restricted. China
is restricted. See, China, it says North America, Regions 1 to 9, except as noted, and China. That's 275.
Yeah, but
You're down below international division, except Hong Kong, China. Rich is right. China needs to be taken out because China is up above.
Got it.
thank you.
Mark?
Well, no, it's still correct. Because the international division includes China. And so that's an exception because China's up above. You are correct.
You have to take it out down below, Monty.
No, again, because China is up above. Then they are in the international division.
But they don't have the same point requirements that the rest of the ID does.
Correct.
Well, you've got it in the exception down below so that they only have to have 75 points.
No, that's not what it says. It says 75 points for the international division, except these following countries. And in the case of China, it's up above where it's 275.
That's right.
Well, that makes it confusing. It would have been much better if you would just have listed the countries that require 200, and then the countries that require 225, and then the countries that require 75 and 25.
That we can do.
Mark Hannon?
I don't understand why it says North America, then regions 1 through 9. Regions 1 through 9, doesn't that include North America?
Yeah.
It would seem to me that if we had on the first line, regions 1 through 9 and China, 275.
Except as noted, because for example, the maritime provinces of Canada are part of region 1.
And that's an exception?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see.
I think that's noted.
The problem is that this is skewed. All the numbers are skewed and not properly aligned. When Aline presented this at the last meeting, I think it was the last meeting, everything was typed nice and it came out nice. Sometimes when these get transcribed over into our reports, we can see the numbers are all over the place.
Yeah, I think we do need to blow it up and put spaces in between each line.
Well, it needs to be neater so people can actually see. But it is correct
Where the
when
divisions
it's
are.
stated. Monty, please don't talk over me. It is stated, especially when I'm trying to back you, so don't talk over me. It states international division, parentheses, except Hong Kong, China, Malaysia, Thailand, except for those countries. So they are drawn out. China is not part of that because it's accepted from international division. If this was cleaner and presented in a nice non-skewed manner, it would be easier for the board to see. But otherwise, everything basically is there. It's just sort of a puzzle to bring out. Perhaps it would be possible to pull this out, and maybe Aline could bring up, or Rachel bring up from the meeting where this was brought up in a nice, pretty table, and then we can go back and perhaps look at this at a little later.
Annette is recognized.
Yes, I agree with Pam. Maybe we could look at this later. Whenever there's an exception within an exception, I think it's really confusing. So it says except as noticed, and then it says except again in the parentheses, and then those countries are listed separately. Meanwhile, the other ones aren't. There's got to be a better way to show this. That's all.
Yep. So somebody want to make a motion to table this and let them rework it and then bring it back?
Rich will.
Okay, I need a second.
Pam will second.
All right, good deal. So you want to make it a special order tomorrow? Yes or no?
I'm fine with that.
Okay,
So was the second.
okay, thank you. So let's vote on the motion to table. Is there any objections to tabling the motion? Okay. All right, so no objection. Okay. Rich, are you?
No, since we're going to rework this, is the grand premier points required for Ukraine, correct?
I need to double check that, and I'm on my iPad. That's where my show rules are, except for downstairs. So I will have to double check. I think it's 75.
Okay, thanks, Pam.
All right. All right, so any objection to tabling this until tomorrow? Okay, no objections by unanimous consent. Number 4 is tabled until tomorrow. So who's going to work on reworking this chart?
I'll do that.
You'll do that, Monty?
Yeah. I'll just send Rachel, which email address should I use?
The AOL address. Thank you.
Got it.
Okay, all right, let's move on to number 5.
Number 5 extends the exception of whether a cat needs to show within its own regional division to get a regional award. The exception that we put in place for 2021-22 had to do with whether or not there was a show within that region. I modified that slightly because of the situation you could have where a kitten may have shown outside of its region, and they only had a show in that region while it was a cat. So it never could show as a kitten in that region, but there was a show within that region during the show season.
Okay. Pam Delvar?
Monty, how does this take into consideration the requirement that regional wins for Region 9? And I also think for Region 8 can only be based upon the points earned in those particular regions. I cannot have a regional winning cat in Region 9 if it without earning its points in Region 9. So if it's shown in the ID, or let's say somebody decides to go to Turkey, which is basically Europe anyway, decides to go to Turkey, those points would not count for Region 9 regional win. Does this take that into consideration?
That's a different set of show rules.
True.
And no, we haven't addressed that at all here. That's where the whole long laundry list of where you can earn points in depending on where you live.
But you're bringing up more in your verbiage here.
Right, just
above and
talks about
beyond.
the waiver that we put in effect for the 2021-22 show season, where we modified it to allow a cat or kitten had to show within its own region if there was a show within its own region. The original exemption that was in place for 2020-2021 didn't care whether there was a show in that region or not. It automatically waived the requirement to show within its region.
I think you would be better off by stating that the show, if there were, I'm trying to read off my iPhone, to exempt if there's no show during its period of being a kitten, or not. Let's go back to the table.
Okay, Melanie.
Thank you, Daryl. I actually want to do an aside statement, and Monty, I mean, we have so many people in CFA who work as volunteers, and I want to thank you for all the work you're putting into all of this, and hope that you know that we really appreciate all of that, because this is not an insubstantial task you've taken on, and I appreciate the work you've gone to putting this together for us. So my thanks. In terms of this particular show rule, to my knowledge, this came about, this exception, when we had situations where there were multiple regions who simply weren't putting on shows.
Correct.
As far as I know, I think all of our regions and our divisions are producing at least some shows at this point. So I think it's time for us to cut off this exception and reinstate the in-region regional requirement show rule. If there's a situation that involves, say, a kitten where there were no viable opportunities during that kitten's career to show in region, then I think the board should be willing to entertain a specific exception with valid justification. But I think it's time to get back to our show rules wherever we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Melanie. Rich, you're recognized.
Thank you. I thought it was October board meeting. We spent some time reviewing this for the extension of this year, and the board agreed to do it for kittens and not for cats. Is that correct, or am I incorrect in that?
Elaine,
I thought that's what we did.
Excuse me, I think it was for kittens and cats. It was just that some of the kittens aged out before there was a show in their region was the issue. You know, we don't have that problem with adults.
As I recall, I thought Pam Delabar brought some good points why we wouldn't include cats, and we limit it to just kittens. And I thought the board had agreed to accepting this as an exception for kittens for this year. I'd like to know what we did, and I'm kind of starting to lean towards Melanie. However, I could see there would be a concern for kittens if there's no shows produced in that region while they're eligible to be shown.
Anybody else? Okay, so I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, extend the waiver for eligibility to exhibit. The exhibitor won an award has to be in their region. So if you're a yes, raise your hand. Okay, I have Mark Cannon, Kenny Curley, and Kathy Donald. You'll take your hands down. The no votes. Okay, the no votes are Melanie Morgan, George Eigenhouser, Carol Krasnowski, Pam Delabar, Sharon Roy, Annette Wilson, Kathy Calhoun, Rachel Anger, John Kalila, Pam Mosier, Rich Maston. You'll take your hands down. Okay, the abstentions. Kathy Calhoun and Hayata-san. Okay, Rachel, you can announce the vote.
I have a couple problems. I have Kathy Calhoun as a no and an abstention.
I was a no. I just
Okay.
was slow in getting my hand down.
Oh, I thought so. Okay. And then I did not get a vote from Hayata or Webster.
She was abstained.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
I was abstained.
Thank you. I'm sorry. And then Webster, I did not get a vote from. Is Howard still on the call?
He's
Oh,
still here. He's
Stepped
on
away
mute.
from his chair. Yeah.
That makes him an extension if he's not here.
Okay. Okay, I have 3 yes votes, 11 no votes, 1 abstention, 1 did not vote. However, we want to count that.
All right, thank you, Rachel. The motion is not agreed to. And do we, I guess the regional directors, if you get an issue where there was a cat that did not have an opportunity to exhibit, then that should be brought to the board's attention so an exception could be made. I think that's what Melanie was getting at when she brought up her points. Okay. All right, Monty, move on to number 6.
Number 6 may or may not be around because it depends on whether we vote on number 8 or not. We'll get to that. This would allow Hong Kong to count super specialty rings as 2 rings in the formula for awards. Right now, we use a formula for awards that determines how many awards a particular area within the international division gets based on how many rings they actually hold during the show season. So this would let them count super specialties as 2 rings. Whereas normally we'd count them as 1.
Which we are doing currently.
Right. That is what we're doing currently.
Okay. Any comments? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, raise your hand. Okay, so the yes votes are Mark Hannon, Kenny Curley, Rich Maston, George Eigenhouser, Carol Krasnowski, Kathy Dunham, John Kalila, Hayata San, Annette Wilson, Howard Webster, and Kathy Calvin. You'll take your hands down. The no votes, please. The no votes are Melanie Morgan, Pam Delabar, Rachel Anger, Pam Mosier. You'll take your hands down. Abstentions. Sharon Roy abstains. And Rachel, you can announce the vote.
It's 11 yes votes, 4 no votes, 1 abstention.
Okay, the motion is agreed to. All right, let's go on to number 7, Monty.
Number 7, last year we instituted a point minimum requirement for a regional award, specifically 200 points for championship, 100 points for kittens, 100 points for premiership, and 50 points for household pets. What we're recommending is to take that we put in place for just that one show season and make it in place as a regular rule for all show seasons, which would institute a point minimum requirement for regional winners, which we have for this season, but in the past is dependent on what region you're in, whether there was ever a requirement at all. I still remember going to an award show in Region 4, sorry, John, where they gave an award to a cat that got 5.65 points, which means it got a second best at one show in all rings. And it got a regional win.
Okay.
Breed win.
Yep. Melanie Morgan, you're recognized.
I feel that the minimums provided here personally are a little bit low, especially for the kittens, but I wholeheartedly support the concept. And if accepting lower than ideal minimums is what it takes to get it approved, I can support this.
Okay, John Kalila.
I just want to say we increased the point minimum, but like the other regions for the last couple of years.
Thank you, John. Sharon Roy.
Yes, I'm going to agree with Melanie on most of it, but I do believe the household pet minimum, at least for my region, is much too low. I would like to see that at 100, like premiership and kittens.
Okay, George Eigenhouser.
We're still in the middle of a pandemic, and it's going to be a while till things get back to normal. I'd say let's go with this. If we want to tweak it in a year or two and we have a little more shows behind us, we can do that. But for right now, today, this is better than what we've got, and I'm voting yes.
Okay, Pam Delabar.
I would love to be able to say that I had cats reach 200 points last show season, but it did not happen. Let's have a base to go on that we can grow later. This will do just fine.
Okay. Any other comments? No. Okay. Is there any objection to this? Okay, seeing no objection by unanimous consent, the motion is agreed to. Let's go on to the next one, Monty.
Well, number 8, I have a problem here, and I'm going to start off with my mistake. As I listed the international division definitions, I grabbed the wrong copy of the rules to me. So what I have here is not correct. So the part that doesn't have an underline or a cross out is not going to be changed from what the current rule really is. So the international definitions are not changing. which means Malaysia, Vietnam, Brunei also includes Thailand. And I don't have that correct here. So just a heads up on that one. But what this does is changes the whole philosophy behind how we give out divisional awards. Right now, we give out divisional awards based on rings. If you have so many rings in your divisional area, then you get to have so many awards in that area. The problem we ran into last year was we had cats that competed outside of their area because, of course, they had no show and they earned points. But that also meant they were ineligible for any award because there were no rings in their area, hence no award. So we made an exception based them strictly on points. What this would do was put that point requirement in place and eliminate the requirement for number of rings by area. And I have the text of that discussion as part of the rationale.
Okay, let's get Bob Zenda's input on that.
Yeah, I think it's a little messy because the wording you've got at the beginning, which defines the definition of who gets awards and where they are, what the countries are, is totally incorrect because it didn't.
I know, I just said that.
Yeah, I know, but I'm going to go a little further here. It's correct in the show rules, except where it's printed in the show rules, except that they never deleted the word Vietnam from Malaysia, Vietnam, Brunei, even in that instance. So no matter how many times we tried to get this done, and Shelley probably remembers what we brought it to her attention that it wasn't published yet, et cetera, we still had, no matter where it is, it's still not correct on what was voted on the board in October of 2020. And so I'm not sure how you can vote on this doggone thing until those things are corrected.
Okay, Pam Delabar.
I actually like this concept better than the super specialty counting as 2 rings for Hong Kong, because it would have brought in the points in line with everyone else. This was another one I think should be tabled and brought back correctly for the board to consider. I think it's got merit, and it puts everybody somewhat on the same set of rules or same concept for regional and divisional wins.
Okay, Rich.
Yeah, Monty, is this just for the 2022-23 season or a permanent change?
This would have been a permanent change.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so Pam made a motion to table. I need a second, so this. can
Melanie
be-
seconds.
Thank you. So Bob, can you and Monty get together to make sure that the rule is correct so that it can be implemented throughout our show rules and everything?
No problem.
Yep.
Okay.
No problem. We have no problem with the
We'll
point.
get it back this afternoon, Bob, or
Okay.
I guess more like evening.
Okay. All right, cool, good. So we have a motion to table. Any objections to the motion to table? All right, I see no hands up. By unanimous consent, we have tabled this one, and that will be brought back corrected for us to vote on tomorrow. Okay, Monty, number 9.
Number 9, for this show season that we're currently in, we lowered the number of ring requirements and the point requirements. This proposal would put that in effect for the following show season as well. We reduced the rings from 100 rings to 50 rings and 2,000 points in championship, 20 rings and 700 points in kittens, 50 rings and 1,000 points in premiership, 50 rings and 500 points in household pets, and highest 7 shows for agility. That's what's in effect for the end of this show season. This would extend it for the next show season as well.
Okay, Mark Hannon.
I'm out there showing a lot, and I'm getting a lot of feedback against this rule. They don't like it for this season. They certainly aren't going to want it for next season. And I think one of the things that we're planning to do later is to appoint some people to come back at the April meeting with recommendations for scoring for next show season, such as minimums. And I think we can include this in April rather than deal with it now. Because I can't support this. I have too many people telling me that they think that the 50 rings is creating chaos, that 20 for kittens is just insufficient, because you can do that in a couple of shows if you get enough points.
Okay, Kenny Curley.
Yeah, I mean, I'm in agreement with Mark, only because of what has transpired since the original motions were, these things were originally passed, the uncertainty of the future. And as we have seen, our show counts have gone up really far and exceeding my expectations. And yes, this is probably way outdated for what we need. If things continue to improve, which I hope they will, I don't see any reason why we can't go back to our original scoring system. I do agree that we cannot move on this today. I'd like to see this tabled until the April show, so we can get more feedback, maybe even do a poll with our people through CFA to see what they would like to have implemented in the next show season.
Okay, Melanie, you're recognized.
Thank you. Like Mark, I've heard a whole lot of feedback, almost 100% negative about the changes in our ring requirements. And in my opinion, given the fact that we're having shows nearly every weekend in most of our areas, or at least across our regions, there's absolutely no reason, in my opinion, to extend this adjustment. You only have to look at the standings to see that cats have easily met and exceeded the 140 ring requirements. And yet we're looking at 50 and 20, which I think is negatively impacting on entries for shows coming forward. So lowering the number of rings, as we've done, creates a hardship for the clubs. And given the fact that there's a number of opportunities out there to earn points in rings, it's really unnecessary. As Mark said, with a kitten, in 2 weekends with 6x6s, you can easily meet your 20 rings, and then there's no reason to enter your kitten at all. So I don't support this, and I see no reason why we can't vote on this now.
Okay, Rich Maston, you're recognized.
Yeah, so I agree with everybody that spoke before me. But in addition, I would like to, when this is reworked, if that's the direction this goes, we do need to include what show season it's for. It's not listed here. It doesn't say for 2022, 2023 show season.
All these proposals are for 2022, 23. And I just assumed get rid of this just like Melanie would.
Yeah, some of them have that in the rules for 2022, 2023 show season. Some do not. And I think we want to be clear on that.
Okay, Carol Krasnowski.
Yes, I guess I should have mentioned at the beginning when I made my standing motions that these were all exceptions that were in place for the current season. And the board had requested we bring them back in February to look at them again for next season. So it's kind of a blanket heading that should have been on there, that they were all being proposed for the next season. But in regard to the number of rings and points, I do agree with some of the comments that were made. I've been getting a lot of feedback as well. I think it's way too low. We are having more shows now. Perhaps it's not quite time to go back to what we had before, but I think if we wait until April to review this again, we might have a better feel for how things are going to look for next season. I just don't think that it's a good idea to go with this right now. While our intentions were good when we put this in place, and I think our constituents realized that we were trying to be kind to everyone, they soon realized that it just wasn't feasible and it wasn't practical to have such a low number.
Yeah. Eileen.
I just wanted to mention that if we don't determine what these requirements are until April sometime, then we will already have an addendum to the show rules because they will have been printed. Just so you know.
Pam Delavar.
I just want to state that basically you all are talking about regions 1 through 7. I've just counted up we're lucky to have 24 rings done in Region 9 so far. And our last show was not all that far away from Bergamo. And if you have any consideration for COVID, then you know that Bergamo, Italy was a tragic disaster. Our people, we've got some outstanding cats that cannot make the higher ring requirements. And it's this, I don't understand. 50 rings you have to have as a base minimum. 200 point or 2,000 points is what you have to have as a base minimum. Why doesn't anybody want to exceed for the joy of competition? But just know that you're talking about the US and Canada, because you're not looking at the rest of the world.
Carol? Oh, you took your hand down. Okay. So we got two options here. We can table this and bring it back, or we can vote on it. And if it gets voted down, then the scoring system will go back to what it was, because the exception will not be granted. So let's I don't know what's the best way to do this. Does anybody want to make a motion to table this and bring it back for April? Pam? Delabar?
I will make a motion to table and bring back April, knowing full well we'll probably have an addendum to the show rules.
But Daryl,
Ellie?
I need to know what are we going to print in the show rules? Just leave them as they are then?
Yes.
Okay.
And then you'll have to print an addendum that will provide this exception if it's granted.
We haven't voted on the tabling yet, though.
I understand. I'm waiting for a second.
I'll second. George seconds.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol.
I just want to comment that these exceptions that we are passing today will not actually be printed in the current show rules. They are printed as exceptions for the current season. That's what we've done before. And so if we change the scoring, it would be included in that list. I believe that's what we've done before. So I don't think there would be a problem postponing this till April.
Aline, you want to address that?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, the ones that have been passed for the next show season will go into the print show rules. And those that have been tabled or failed, the show rules will just stay the way they are.
Okay. Just another sheet to put in your show rules.
Yeah, just a little more confusion for everybody.
Yeah, okay. Any other comments on the motion to table? I think Pam made it and George seconded. Is that correct? Yep, okay, all right. So I'll call for the motion to table. All those in favor of tabling this? Okay, so I have Mark Hannon, George Eigenhouser, Kenny Curley, Pam Delabar, Kathy Dunham, Howard Webster, Sharon Roy, Kathy Calhoun, Rich Maston, Carol Krasnowski, Ayata San, John Kalila, Annette Wilson. We'll take your hands down. The no votes. Okay, is Melanie Morgan, Rachel Anger, Pam Mosier. You'll take your hands down. Abstentions. Okay, so no abstention. Rachel, you can announce the vote to table when you have it tabulated.
13 yes, 3 no, 0 abstentions.
Okay, so who's going to take the lead on bringing this back in April? Is that Monty? Is that you and Carol?
Yeah, we'll bring it back in April.
Okay, Mark, you're recognized.
I thought you were going to later in the meeting appoint some people to come back at April for next show season scoring situation. Couldn't we give it to that group?
Okay, well, don't you think the show rules committee should be involved in that?
Well, my understanding was that Monty was one of the people you were going to appoint.
Okay. Ellie?
I do have a question. The items that are going to be considered in April or brought back in April regarding scoring, I'm going to assume that's not regarding the scoring software, but instead we're talking about point minimums, number of rings, something like that. Because April is not enough time to make any changes to the scoring software and have it ready to go by May, depending on what that change is.
Monty, you want to answer that?
Well, I'm going to assume that if we make any changes in April, it's going to be for the 22-23 show season, the one that starts in May. So I would hope you have time to adjust it so that it is correct by the time we get to May of 2023.
Well, no, if you're talking May of, you're talking a year from now. I think they're talking
Yes.
about changes for 2022-23. Or am I wrong on that?
No,
they're
that's
talking
correct.
about the show season coming up.
Correct. That's correct.
Yes, and if it's not done until April and there's any major programming changes, we will not have enough time to do that, is what I'm saying. And have everything tested, changed, tested, and ready to go by that first weekend. Actually, the first weekend of the next show season is April 30th, May 1st, which makes it even more of a challenge.
So you're basically saying that if the number of rings go up, then the software would have to be changed.
Well, yes, I mean, some minor changes like that we can accommodate. I'm talking if there's any major programming changes. For instance, changing to, we're going to score cats by the number present and competing. If there's 100 cats, so we do 99 for the count. I'm talking major program scoring, not.
I think this motion here only deals with how many rings are we going to count for scoring.
I'm assuming we're just talking rings and points.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Okay. John Kalila?
I hate to say this, we can bring up the March meeting. Like I said, I hate to say this.
I see some head wagging no. So Aline, are you, if it's just points and score rings,
That's
you'll
fine.
you'll be able to do that.
That's fine. Yes.
All right. Okay. Okay. So that's been tabled. And Monty.
Number 10 is easy. Changes the number of points required for a breeder color win from 200 to 100. That's in effect for this show season. Again, I didn't write it down, but it's only for the 2022-2023 show season.
Okay.
Whether we should extend it.
Okay. Any comments? Melanie?
With the possible exception of Region 9, I think the points and opportunities are out there, and I don't see a need to extend this exception.
Okay. Anybody else want to comment? All right, I'll call for the vote. All those in favor of the extension, please raise your hand. Okay, the yes votes are George Eigenhouser and Howard Webster. You'll take your hand down. The no votes, please. The no votes are Kenny Curley, Melanie Morgan, Mark Hannon. Knocked out my thing here. Okay. All right, I'm going to start over, Rachel. Kenny Curley, Melanie Morgan, Mark Hannon, Pam Mosier, Kathy Calhoun, Pam Delabar, Rachel Anger, Carol Presnowski, John Kalila, Sharon Roy, Annette Wilson, Rich Maston, Kathy Calhoun, Hayata-san. All right, you'll take your hands down. And any abstentions? Melanie Morgan. I thought you were no.
I was a no, sorry.
All right, Carol Krasnowski's abstaining.
No, I'm sorry. I was a no. I'm sorry about
Okay,
that.
all right. Okay, Rachel, you can announce the vote.
I either didn't get or didn't hear Kathy Dunham.
I was a no, Rachel.
That's 2 yes votes, 14 no votes, 0 abstentions.
Okay, the motion is not agreed to, so there won't be an exception for the Breeden Division award points. Monty?
That's it. Number 11 was something that was already voted on and made effective permanently. And number 12, you've already agreed we're going to discuss tomorrow. So that's it.
Okay. All right. Let's go on to our next yearbook publication. Melanie Morgan, that's your wheelhouse.
Super, thank you. We understand that on paper, the yearbook is a hard sell, doubly hard in a year where there was little to no show activity. But sometimes those intangibles that are out there outweigh the numbers. And I'm very, very thankful that CFA, both the board and our constituents out there, support what the yearbook represents. It's a snapshot in time that documents the love and the passion that we have for our association. And that legacy is incredibly important, given the fact that if we've learned little else over time, it's this: you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you're coming from. So I also want to commend Eileen and Shelley, as well as the contributing authors for this last yearbook, for their hard work on this year's publication. It was a tough issue in that we were documenting a year of the pandemic with little to no show activity. So a quick update on the progress since the writing of this report. Like many other things in our lives, the yearbook completion has been impacted by COVID-19, with production delays at the printer due to supply issues. The good news is they'll start to ship the yearbooks for this last season the week of February 14th. So in approximately a week or so from now. And other than that quick update, we have no action items at the moment. So I'll open it up for any questions for Eileen or myself. And barring that, celebrate the briefest report I've ever given.
Anybody have comments or questions for Melanie?
Oh, I did want to mention something.
Go ahead, Eileen.
Because there has been a delay in getting the books, our plan is to ship all of the books that we have pre-orders for out via UPS instead of the United States Postal System. It should prove to be faster receipt.
Okay.
That's all.
Kathy Calhoun.
Do you have any idea what the increased cost would be regarding that?
Not really. I think the what we are charging for shipping will mostly cover the cost to ship UPS. I don't think we'll be too upside down on that. And then going forward, any orders that come in going forward, we will ship the most efficient method as far as cost. It's just getting these initial ones out.
Okay, Pam Delaware.
Eileen, how are you going to ship to Europe and internationally?
What do you recommend?
Well, nothing that goes through customs and border protection. I don't know. I really do not know.
Well, we'll take a look at the what we have to ship into Europe, and then I'll get in touch with you. We can try and figure out a good solution.
Whatever we get, we're still going to get hit with value added tax, however it comes in. Unfortunately, I don't have a chance to come in and pick up 30 some odd books to bring back to Europe. So I wish I could.
I'll get in touch with you and we can maybe make it at least a little better.
Okay, anything else on your book publications? Eileen, your hand's up. You have more comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. No.
John Kalila, you're recognized.
Do you have the books right now, Eileen?
No, we're expecting them next week.
Okay, I thought if you had them, you can bring with 10 books I can try to sell to you at my show next weekend. I'm sorry. I
That's
tried.
okay.
Not a problem. Any other comments? All right, let's move on to, I think this is Virtual Cat Competition Committee report. And that's Iris, Kathy Dunham. I don't know if I look, I didn't see Iris in the waiting, in the attendees.
He's here.
Oh, okay, all right.
Just promoted her.
Iris, how are you doing? Your microphone's.
There.
There you are.
Okay. This should be very short and sweet. We just wanted to let everybody know that we're still here. We're still putting on virtual shows, and we're taking entries for one right now, as a matter of fact. And we just had a request to do one this summer, which we'll be working on as we get the chance. And we have a new member to help us coordinate prizes and sponsorships. And we made one change to our format for the upcoming show at the request of the show manager. We are going to dispense with the video part of the finals and just do our finals as slideshows, which will save an absolutely incredible amount of time. So we're going to see how this is received, and if we need to go back to the video format for future shows, then of course we will.
Okay, good deal. Thank you, Iris. Anybody have questions or comments for Iris? Okay, Iris, doesn't look like anybody has any questions for you. Thank you very much for your report. We appreciate it.
Okay.
Already, good deal. Okay, so that's the last order of business for today's open session. And unless someone has any last comments before I adjourn, raise your hand quickly.
Can we get 5 minutes between so we can take a break?
Yes, that's very good. Let's see. It is 5:03. So why don't we come back at 5:15? Okay, thank you all very much. Nice work, everybody, and the meeting is adjourned.